Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone on Facebook Live and anyone tuning into YouTube. I want to make sure this is working, and it seems to be working this week. Kyle, if you could level it out a little bit. I thought I had it, but bring it down a little bit on my side with the, yeah. While he does that, I want to welcome back to the garage Josh Bentley from Altidus, USA.
How you doing, guys?
Am I saying that right? Altidus and Josh Bentley?
Altidus, Josh Bentley. All right, man.
And
good
then
to
also,
be back.
Good to be back. We appreciate you having you in the garage. And then I have Shannon Chapman.
What's up,
who
everybody?
has been around. We shared his video on some of the information on the community page and on the podcast page and everything else. So hopefully you guys had a chance to check that YouTube video out, a little bit of his story, for that's going to be a big part of part 2. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing it. What are you guys drinking, smoking? What are you guys doing tonight? I don't know if there's any real sports on or anything like that tonight, but hopefully you guys have time to tune in, stay with us a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and share this. If Nate, you could go over the sponsors, and then Kyle, if you could actually lower me down a little bit more there.
So episode 102, the Bourbon and BS podcast, is being brought to you by Tinderbox at Easton Town Center, Columbus, Ohio. Typically, they provide us the first cigar, the featured cigar of the evening. However, since we have Josh Bentley in the house,
yes, sir,
he is providing our featured cigar of the evening, which is going to be the yet-to-be-released H. Upmann Herman's batch. So we'll get into that in a little bit. So we would like to thank Altidus twice for sponsoring this podcast, because they also provide us our second cigar. And since the featured cigar is not something yet available at the Tinderbox, we're going to do 15% off on the H. Upmann Nicaragua, which is already a fantastic bang-for-buck cigar. So 15% off of that is even a sweeter deal. So mention the Bourbon and BS podcast, get 15% off. Call in, minimum 5-pack order. We'll ship it out to you at 15% off. So great deal for everyone out there. And also, BS Cigar Company. Got a few laying around while we still have some left in the shop. Pick them up as soon as you can, because it may be a little bit before you see them. And then don't forget about the Patreon page, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. We've had a few more patrons. We've had some people up there, monthly sponsorship. So all that goes to provide, bottles of whiskey or equipment and stuff like that to maintain this podcast and just keep it steady going. Just not making anything off of it, just keeping it afloat. Yeah. Please like, share, review. Steve, wasn't this bottle donated to us by one of our guests?
Yeah, Jerry Dezenski donated that for us, which I appreciate. Hopefully he's watching tonight. I sent him a message to let him know.
So we're going to be drinking the Traverse City Whiskey Company. They call this one the XXX Straight Bourbon. They do 5 different whiskeys. We'll get into a little bit about them. And if you recognize the name Traverse City, yes, it is from Traverse City, Michigan. So we will get into that a little bit. Josh, how has life on the road been for you?
I'm telling you what, man, it's been a good start to 2020. I can't complain. We ended 19 on a great note. We had some great new products that came out, and 2020 has been a stellar year. We've had a lot of good sales, I guess I'll say, but we have a lot of anticipation for some of our blends that are upcoming, including the new H. Upmann Herman's batch that we are smoking tonight. So looking forward to getting into this cigar.
And then our special guest, our other special guest this evening, why don't you introduce yourself?
What's up, guys? My name's Shannon Chapman. Born and raised here in Columbus. Known Steve for a little while now.
Yeah.
So a good dude. Just came to hang out at the podcast, get to know Josh, and have a good time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Glad to have you.
All right. About ready to do this. I'm going to light up before we start here. Again, anyone that's tuning in, we got about 30, 40 people on right now. What are you guys drinking, smoking? Hopefully you guys are enjoying your Wednesday night, Whiskey Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
Kyle we need to get a level. That's not on you. That's on me. I thought it is that way, but it is just a little crooked. But it might be the lighting as well. That doesn't look all that bad. So, yeah, that could be it. That could be it. All right, let's get started here. I've shared up. If anyone else wants to share up on their Facebook feed, Angelo is drinking Woodford Double Oaked. He says, "Cheers, cheers." I'm gonna pour this as well. No, that's fine. You can do that. For everyone that's just tuning in on Facebook, we're about to get started. We're just letting everyone kind of tune in here. I'm pouring my first glass of this Traverse City. Nate, you want to go ahead and grab this?
Josh, how many times you been on the podcast now?
Officially, this is my third time though, unofficially. Yeah, you know, you include that that first time I jumped in halfway. Well, I was on for the topic. That's right. So yes, three times. Glad to be back. Jumped at the opportunity. Steve told me about Shannon and shared with me your video. It was pretty awesome. And as it would happen, I was in Columbus, and so it was pretty cool. I'm really happy to be here.
Perfect. So we get started here. Shannon, how long have you been listening to the podcast?
I say about maybe a month now.
Okay.
About a month or so that I got hip to it, and I think the first night I came in was when Sean did his story. No,
That's right.
I was here the week before, then I came back.
Checking it out, yeah. Perfect. All right, let's get started. Nate, are you ready on that?
I am.
Awesome. I am ready. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 102. I want to welcome our special guests in the garage. We have Shannon Chapman, who we did share out. For those of you listening to the audio, if you guys check out any of our social media, we shared a YouTube video that he had done with his church called One Church here in the Columbus area, and had a little bit of his story. So we're going to really dive into that in the Beyond the BS portion of it in part 2 of the podcast. But we also have Josh Bentley here from Altadis USA makers. So that's a good segue into I want to thank our sponsors.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Josh, I've known Josh for a long time. Actually, I think since he got started in this industry.
Yeah.
And he was with Oliva Cigars before, and now he's transitioned through the years back in the cigar industry, which he smiles a lot more, I feel like, when he's in the cigar industry. But based out of Cincinnati area, and we've known him for a long time. He's with Altadis, which is one of our sponsors. They are the ones behind us here on the Romeo Julieta, the Monte Cristo, H. Upmann, which they are providing our first and second cigar tonight, which we appreciate. Normally they support us, and they also give us the weekly second cigar. So we appreciate that support, Josh, from you. And I know Paul Waller has been a big part of this project with you and myself and Jake when Jake was with the podcast on a weekly basis. So I appreciate your support on that. Also want to thank Tinderbox at Easton. That's kind of how this all fell together. That's how the connection with Altadis got in the mix. That's they normally do the weekly featured cigar. Since we can't do the special on the H. Upmann that we're doing tonight, we're going to do it on another one that we carry. Actually, it's the H. Upmann Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez, the blue band. We've smoked that before on the podcast. Usually as a second one, that's one of our favorites from Altadis. I think AJ Fernandez killed it with that one. Knocked it out of the park. So that'll be 15% off between now and the next podcast. You can either come in the shop if you're in the Columbus area. You can call in, message us. We'll do 5 packs as a minimum if we want to ship it out to you guys. 15% off. So anywhere you guys are, we can do that, no problem. So thank you, Tinderbox at Easton. Also, BS Cigar Company for continued support. We've got some news. Unfortunately, we are going to be on a delay until about March. We're running out of the BS Silver, so grab those while they're in inventory, while they're in stock. We're going to be about 2 months out for the BS Silvers, getting restocked in the 3 sizes, and then the new reblended golds. I don't know if you knew about all that, Josh.
No, I didn't.
So Plasencia is who we're working with.
Okay.
So yeah, the BS Gold, if you guys have smoked it before, basically we worked with Casa Fernandez, or now Aganorsa Leaf.
Correct.
Parted ways with them. They're going through some transitions. It just wasn't, the synergy or the great relationship, not personally, but with the way we were doing business. It just didn't work out. So now we've worked with Plasencia, gave them basically, hey, this is what we used to make. This is what we're shooting for. So we didn't really start from scratch. We said, smoke these, and can you reproduce it? They sent us several blends, and we went to taste test against the old one, and we think we picked as close as we can. So we're excited about that. So stay tuned for that. But thank you, BS Cigar Company. Also, if you guys want to support us to help this become more and more self-sufficient, get greater bottles, bigger bottles, rarer bottles, to help us with the sound equipment, production value, all of that stuff. We want to really thank all of our current supporters. I've been mentioning it the last couple of weeks. I've got some meetings set up for some merchandise to thank our patrons on the Patreon page, hopefully by the end of the first quarter here. But yeah, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast, and you can contribute $1, $5, $10, $100 a month, whatever, and they make it really easy for you. But we appreciate the current supporters, and we're going to send out some thank you gifts. We're going to get to that point where we're going to have some tiers as well. So for this much a month, you'll get this welcome package or thank you package 6 months in. So stay tuned for more of that. Check that out if you guys want to help us out. It definitely it does contribute to the success of this podcast with your guys' support.
So what Steve is saying, make it rain.
Make it rain.
Make it rain.
Whatever you want to do.
That's right.
Just click that mouse. So tonight, the subject is sharing your growth. And we're going to get to that in the second part of it. But the first part, if you guys are tuning in for the first time, whether it's on audio, Facebook Live, or on YouTube, basically the part one is focused on the whiskey and cigars. Basically what brings us to the garage, brings us together, and leads into that second part kind of conversation after a few drinks, smoking cigars, hanging out with friends and family. So I want to start with, because we do have Josh Bentley here, the H. Upmann Banker Herman's Batch, or is it Herman's Batch Banker?
Yeah,
the
Herman's
Banker.
Batch. Yep, Herman's Batch, the Banker.
Okay.
Part of the new Founders line, and the Banker, which is the original in the green box that everybody knows. And this will be part of that line, and you'll see more to come in the future as well. So to get into it and to tell you guys a little bit about the Herman's Batch, unreleased. So this is a pre-release that we're smoking. It should hit humidors probably the latter part of the month, early February.
So not yet shipping.
Not yet shipping. Yep, that's correct. So
well, I feel
we got
special.
we got that new.
The
All
new.
right? This is that new.
Why is it called the Banker? Do you have a little history on the H. Upmann brand? Because everyone's heard of it. There's the Cuban line still that's being produced, the H. Upmanns, which that's where the history really starts with this name, right?
Correct. So Herman Upmann was a German banker, and funny enough, to kind of pause real quick and to go back, the last time that I was on the podcast, we were smoking the 175th. Yeah, hey, there you go.
Another
so
fantastic cigar.
Commemorative, right? It was a commemorative release to commemorate the 175th anniversary of H. Upmann. So what we did was we talked about Herman Upmann coming to Cuba. And so to kind of re-go back, and I'm definitely honored that we got to kind of do this pre-release here, and to share, as you alluded to, Steve, 175 years. Herman Upmann came from Germany to Cuba and started the H. Upmann Bank. And
an actual physical bank. Nothing cigar related at this point,
nothing
other than being in Cuba
related.
Okay.
And by fate, he got into cigars and growing tobacco in Cuba, and started the H. Upmann line. And with that line, you have we're paying tribute to him. It's got a nice little footband on it that says, "This is my signature," and has Herman Upmann's signature on that. But let's talk a little bit about the blend, or did we get all that history in?
Well, so we already had a question from Kenny.
Yeah.
He says the Upmann is Nicaraguan, not Cuban. So the Upmann Nicaragua, the one that we have a special on at the Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, that one is a Nicaraguan cigar. It's made in Nicaragua by A.J. Fernandez. The Upmann that we're talking about with the history is obviously the Cuban side of it. So Altadis basically, has the rights to the Upmann brand name, the heritage of that name. And so these aren't going to be Cuban. So to answer your question, Kenny, we're not smoking Cuban cigars tonight. The Upmann Nicaragua is available in the United States at retailers, and then this will be at some point. So where is this one actually manufactured?
This one is manufactured at Tabacalera Garcia.
In what country?
In Dominican Republic.
Okay.
La Romana. It's the largest cigar factory in the world. And it was blended by Rafael Nadal and the Grupo de Maestros. So Grupo de Maestros are a collective unit of master blenders. Mm-hmm. Together they have over 300 years of experience in the cigar industry. So it's 8.
And there's one group. So like the another cigar of Altadis is the Monte Cristo Espada. And that one is manufactured. It says it on the label. It's manufactured in Nicaragua, but blended with the Grupo de Maestros.
Blended by Plasencia and the Grupo de Maestros.
So it's blended. They say it like blended in Dominican, manufactured in Nicaragua or something like that on the band. But it's the same group, is what you're talking about, right?
You're getting too complicated here. And,
I read the label.
No. I understand.
You guys put a book on the Espada.
We did.
You have to
how
this
it was
thing.
blended. Did the Grupo de Maestros travel to Plasencia?
Did
they send them?
You don't know who flew
blends.
where.
Yeah. Let me go back in the history and look. No. Let's not make this any more complicated
yes,
than
sir.
it is.
Yes, sir.
No. It's a phenomenal blend. The Grupo de Maestros don't put their name on a lot of things, but
right.
the few cigars that we have in our portfolio that do don their name, I mean, it's a phenomenal cigar to check out. So to get to the Herman's batch,
mm-hmm.
to talk a little bit about the blend and what was put together for this. So we're smoking the Herman's batch. We're smoking a Toro size. It comes in 4 sizes. It dons a Ecuadorian Habano wrapper.
One of my favorites.
It was aged 4 years, and it went through a double fermentation process. So really complex. It gives it a dark, lush color. Looks really oily. And then it has a Dominican binder, and then Dominican and Nicaraguan filler. The Nicaraguan filler is from Condega and Esteli.
Okay.
The Esteli is grown at a little bit higher elevation and makes for a little bit more complexity and flavor in that.
Yeah. There's more, and maybe I'm wrong here, but like there's more volcanic ash in certain regions of Nicaragua that when you talk about complication or like complexity and everything like that, when you have that, you have a little bit more depth to something.
Plays a lot into the growth and.
Yeah, I mean, which is a good question. It plays into the growth. I mean, when you go back to the farming side of it, I mean, it's true farming. It's the soil, it's the elevation. Josh mentions elevation on that, and you wouldn't think, I wouldn't think that based on elevation it might affect soil and everything like that. But I mean, everything does. Just the way that the ground and the level of everything kind of plays together from different regions. Yeah. That's why, like even Connecticut, it's a valley region where they grow that, and yeah. You guys have a great farm out in Connecticut that I was at, and it's fantastic. So sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, great conversation. Yeah, it very much has to do with the growing, but more so the the complexity of the tobaccos, and so the flavor that you get out of it at different elevations. You talked about the volcanic ash but the type of precipitation that it gets, the type of precipitation that it needs, and overall, my first inch of the cigar, it's an excellent cigar.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, last week I learned something new, and I think you did. Well, you explained this. The higher the leaf, up on the leaf or the plant.
Yep.
So where does this rank on that?
We're talking about the primings on. So last week we did talk about that a little bit, where we talked about like the Viso Seco and Ligero, and then the Medio Tiempo on some of it. We talked about that when Josh was on last time, also with that 175th. Where it was very interesting because you had Medio Tiempo being used in that one, which you said last time, which I thought, the wrapper of all things, and you said 1 in 12 plants on average have that above the 6 priming, which is the Medio Temp. I was listening.
Yeah.
I was paying attention.
Yeah, you were.
I was
surprised,
ready for
man.
a test, like an open book test, but I was ready for a
That's good.
test. Do you know where we're what we're looking at Ligero wise?
No.
That's all you're releasing is the overall makeup of that, of where it's coming from.
Yep. That's correct. Yeah, I mean a little bit higher priming wrapper. As you can see, a couple of veins, but I mean just a very lush, beautiful wrapper, oily sheen on it, and that 4 years definitely helps.
It's a heavy cigar.
It is.
Have you noticed that? Is anyone else feeling that? Like it's a heavy cigar. There's times when you pick up a cigar and first reaction, like sometimes, especially box presses from some companies, they still smoke well, but it's like you pick it up and it's like, man, this is light as a feather.
Yeah.
And they typically will burn faster.
Yep.
Where this has got some weight to it.
Yeah, it's burning nice and smooth and like right where it should be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of nuttiness that I'm getting out of it. First part. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm getting in a little bit of that. I'm not the expert on nuttiness. I am allergic to peanuts, and I don't really eat many tree nuts. So it's unfortunate because I hear nuttiness a lot. Like even like we were talking about with I had a customer, actually, a friend of mine, give me like a couple Cubans today from someone that I didn't get a chance to visit.
Okay.
But it was one of those things where it's like they use peanuts to till between growing seasons.
Yeah.
And so it's like everyone's like, yeah, you get a little bit of peanut like flavor, or notes to it. And I'm like, I just don't want to have an allergic reaction to this, but if that's what it tastes like, then I actually do wish I wasn't allergic to
EpiPen on
peanuts.
standby, like
EpiPen in one hand, cigar, whiskey on the table if I need to get between there. But I guess there's is it like a spice? I don't know. Like I've got some sort. I don't know if Shannon, you're nodding your head.
I got a little bit of it.
Like right in the middle of my tongue.
Right before I lit it, just a little bit of like touching the wrapper on my lips. You could feel a little bit of the spice, just a hint of it. Nothing crazy, but it was like let you know you're about to have a good cigar.
This is one, at least for me. The retrohale is nice. When I say retrohale, for those of you guys don't know what that is, it's actually you don't inhale, but you basically push the smoke from your mouth through your nasal cavity as part of your exhale or your blowout, but I don't get as much of flavor yet on the retrohale. It's nice, but it's not overpowering. I'm just really getting it in the middle of my tongue. It's like all in like the mouth feel, like all in the taste in the mouth. What about you?
Yeah, so on the retrohale, I get a little bit of that like white pepper because it's. I mean, it's not. It's we classify spice, right? And I like to classify. Hey, what is spice? Earlier today, I got the chance to enjoy the H. Upmann Espanol.
I as well.
Yeah, which we released. And I classify that as like a warm spice because you don't get any peppery notes out of it, but you get a almost a cinnamon or nutmeg. And trust me, I'm not one of those guys that you get some oatmeal and graham cracker and hints of caramel and cinnamon. No, that's not me, but that's truly what you get is like this soft spice that reminds me of what nutmeg or cinnamon, and I mean it when you drink a glass of water, it exemplifies that cigar. And so, I mean, with this one, I classify it as you do get a bit of tickle in your throat, and that's how I classify pepperiness. And so when it like kind of clogs up the back of your throat, I know
That
that's
sounds
it,
bad. That's the too much peanut. That's anaphylactic shock. That's anaphylactic shock. You need an EpiPen?
Yeah. Well, I think of that as black pepper, and
No,
I'm not a real peppery cigar guy. I'm not I'm just not that guy. But I like that white pepper, right?
Yeah.
Because that white pepper is a little bit more subtle. It adds that hint of flavor to food, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I like black pepper on food too. But I mean, it's just a little bit more subtle. And then that aftertaste, I get a little bit of like leather on the side of my tongues. But then I'm turning into one of those guys who, let's break this down into
Notes of old vintage newspapers.
That's it. Yeah. Who knows? Herman Upmann might have
Bicycle tire.
Fresh cut garden hose.
There it is.
So you said the wrapper on this is 4 years? 4 years old?
Ecuadorian Habano, aged 4 years. And it goes through a double fermentation process.
Can you explain that any further than double fermentation?
Yeah, so the typical fermentation process is to put it into the pilons, right, and the piles where somebody is constantly rotating and wetting down the tobacco, and that usually happens over a 6-month period of time. Okay. And so what they'll do, where they would take and go to process those tobaccos after the first fermentation process, they go through it and they put it through a secondary fermentation process. Kind of refines the tobacco, makes it a little bit more the flavors a little bit more pronounced. And I believe we talked a little bit before about the wrappers and how much flavor we get out of the wrappers. And, I'm one of the guys, I say we derive almost 90% of the flavor from the wrapper.
And see, that's a mixed school of thought there. You know what I mean? There's people that have different opinions.
Yeah.
But based on what you're saying, I mean, this cigar, I think that's what I'm getting. I mean, I'm still like, it's all middle. I'm getting a little bit when you're describing it. It's like, it's like more of a like very subtle, peppery, retrohale, but it's like some sort of, I don't know what it is. It's right there in the middle of my tongue. Nate, are you getting any of this? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of almost classify it almost like a ginger spice.
That's it. That's for me. That's
Bingo.
What I'm trying to think.
But so I get the flavor of the wrapper that I expect from an Ecuadorian Habano. It's got that flavor.
Yeah.
But what's surprising is you talk about the blend, Dominican binder and then Dominican and Nicaraguan filler. With as much Dominican tobacco as in this cigar, I'm surprised how strong this cigar is. It's not, I wouldn't classify it as full body, but it's definitely not mild or just plain medium. It's medium plus.
Yeah.
But it's got a lot of flavor and complexity with all those tobaccos working well together.
When you said the ginger thing, that's I think where I was at, like ginger snap cookies. Now we're getting into that.
Or
like
if you've ever
it.
had ginger beer, like spiced ginger beer.
Yeah. That's actually what I'm getting. I'm thinking, and we'll get to the whiskey here in a little bit, but I when you said that, it all clicked. The first time you were on, you brought it. I don't think we did the straight rye.
Yeah.
The E.H. Taylor. This, I think, would go really well with a rye, like a good rye, like a Willet 4-year or Michter's rye. We picked. No, this is Jerry for donating his bottle. We're not saying that. I'm just saying I think this would. I think it goes well so far. We'll get to that part of it with the Traverse City whiskey here, but I'm thinking this would go really well with like that E.H. Taylor rye or I think it would. Because
I mean, it's interesting. You say ginger, and what is ginger, right? Like, I mean, when I think of ginger, I'm not necessarily thinking of it as a spice, but I think of sushi, right? And they put that on there as a palate cleanser, right? And I mean,
interesting.
Because you take that retrohale and you feel the sides of your tongue. I said you get a little bit of leather to that. But I mean, it is definitely a refreshing smoke. I mean, if that makes sense.
It starts off like very smooth on the draw, And as we're getting into it, it's like the flavors are starting to pull in and
Yeah.
really digging it. Yeah.
It lingers. This is like a mouth-watering smoke, in my opinion. This is one that you want to keep going back to smoke.
Yeah.
As far as like between draws. With that, like, how do you? I mean, you said this was the Grupos that did this, right?
Yeah,
So
Raphael and the group of de Maestros, blended this.
It makes me wonder, like, you guys are doing, and I'm not going to give anything away, but I mean, you guys are doing more additions to this line. Like, this is, I mean, when you think of that, and I don't know if anyone out there is kind of with me on this, but when you look at something with the Cuban heritage, the 175 years of heritage, you do that anniversary, and then you put the guy's first name. Like, everyone knows, like, they either call it just Upmanns or they say H. Upmanns, Hupman occasionally. But, I mean, you put the guy's first name and you're like, this is his signature blend. Like, I know you're not really part of the blending process, but I mean,
Right.
Is there any talk when you talk to, like, Raphael, like, I mean, like, how do they come up with something that they have the balls to be like, hey, we're going to put this dude's first name on here, and this is what we consider his signature blend. I mean, I think it's a statement. I mean, what's the retail going to be on this?
So we were talking about that a little bit earlier. So we're smoking the Toro. The Toro is going to be in that $10 MSRP price point, $10.50, somewhere around there.
It's a great price for this.
Yeah, it really is. But so going back to your question, how do you do that? I mean, what better way after coming out with the 175th, cigar in the H. Upmann 175th? It was blended and put together with Raphael and AJ Fernandez. It got the number 10 cigar of the year. So we got to smoke the number 10 cigar of the year the last time I was on the podcast. That was pretty awesome.
I thought it'd be higher.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be higher.
Yep. Did it deserve?
There's another Raphael cigar that was number one.
Yeah, that's
he's
right.
all right with that.
But I mean, what better way to commemorate him after coming out with that 175th to commemorate the brand? Give a little bit of that backstory, which we did in our marketing, on who Herman Upmann was, where he came from, then to put out a cigar and try and get as close to the original blend as possible in the flavor profile, mind you. And so, as I said, this is going to be part of the founder's line. And I mean, there's not a lot of cigars out there that have that type of heritage.
There's not. And you have lineage also, like, through the parent company and everything else with that. There's people are like, oh, it's just the knockoff, like Upmann, or the knockoff Monte Cristo, or on the other brands out there that have some of that, like General Cigar has, Punch, Partagas, Cohiba, and all that stuff. There's actual, like, lineage as far as the hierarchy of how your company was structured with the link to Habano's SA.
Yeah. I mean, we have access.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like there's a lot of access there. I think that's a great term for it. And I will say, when you're talking about that stuff, about how it's like kind of going back to like original blends and things like that, the other thing I'm getting on there with the ginger, and this may not come across as a positive to some people, but there's a little saltiness to it. I can see that. And that's what I think is also concentrated on the middle part of it. No, it's not a bad thing. In fact, I get, and I'm not comparing the two. And I know we've talked about it. I think it's tough to not talk about the Cuban side of things, Cuban heritage. But there are a lot of brands from Habano's SA that I get a bit of those salty notes as well from the Cuban tobacco. That's going to be a kind of a prevalent thing that you get from some Cuban brands, like Partagas, for example. I get that a lot. This is actually a little bit reminding me, for those that have smoked it, like a Partagas Serie E. There's a little bit of similarities for me. It's not as sweet as that, but there's a little similarities to that for me on this.
Yeah.
Josh, this question may be something above you. If you know it, great. If not, so
above your pay grade, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. So when you're talking about Altadis, the three main ones, like we have on the flag behind the table: Romeo and Julieta, Monte Cristo, H. Upmann, but you guys have a slew of other lines.
Yeah.
Is there any thought process that goes on as to, okay, we came up with this blend, where's it going to go?
That's a good question.
Like, why is this an Upmann and not a Romeo? Why is this an Upmann, not a Monte Cristo?
Yeah, so I think the how the selection process goes, and I can't say per se, but we do get to be a part of some marketing meetings, and the marketing group listens to us in the field. Were you going to say something?
No. Just enjoying the smoke.
Yeah, absolutely. So to get down to the nitty gritty and try and answer your question as best that I can is the marketing and the cigar. We know what cigar that we're going after, be it an H. Upmann, be it a Henry Clay, be it a Monte Cristo, and so on and so on. And then they go to Raphael, product capabilities, our marketing guy, head of marketing, and he'll go and take this to the group of DeMaestros who you talk about above my pay grade. Yeah, I mean, technically, that would be what they get to do.
You're not in that meeting.
In Tabacalera Garcia. I mean, the amount of cigars that these guys smoke and everything that I feel like we're talking about, the graham cracker and pulling out that dark chocolate, right, and the marshmallow and everything. I mean, these are the type of guys that are the AJ Fernandez, right, but they're behind the scene
right.
AJ Fernandez guys, right, that are working for Altadis USA behind the scenes, and they could sit there and you could hand them a blend, be it whatever it is, and they're going to be able to tell you what that blend is.
They'll break it down based on flavor.
They'll break it down. So they know the history, right? They know what a Monte Cristo is, right? They know what the company wants out of a Monte Cristo. They were there. Chances are they made like one of the first classics, right? They made one of the first Monte Cristo White Series. So they use that experience and they cater to that. But in a cigar like this, I can only imagine what Raphael was going to the group of DeMaestros and saying, hey, Herman Upmann, who was he? We know who he was. Yeah. What was he? We know how he got into to the tobacco industry. Now let's try and create something that is going to commemorate him as the founder, as the original banker, and find what is so closely related to his original blend.
That's a good answer. Jose Sejas worked with you guys for a long time.
Yeah.
And he was basically, I think, with that group, or was kind of like the master blender on a lot of those, like you said, the Monte Cristo Classic.
Yep.
He was a part of that. And, that's something that I think that's also passed down through even generations. Because, like the Monte Cristo, the Altadis stuff, you're talking about years and years of experience, basically fine-tuning it and picking these people for these positions throughout the ranks of all these factories and everything else. These aren't just like random people that have, I know cigars. They've been in the industry for a long time.
They've been in the industry their whole life.
It's amazing.
Right? They grew up in the tobacco fields. And, it's just incredible what they bring to the table. And, I think they really hit it out of the park with this one.
And just, since we have you on especially, I think this is something that we can talk about as far as the marketing behind it. It matters to some people. You walk into a lot of shops and you have a walk-in humidor. So you see the box. You guys picked a gray with gold, right?
Copper.
Pardon me. Dirty gold. Copper. What, is there any significance to it? That's kind of. You have that all the way to the band, and then the foot band. If you guys will see this in your shops or where you see this on the foot band, and I do like this kind of matted, textured gray.
Yeah, I feel like it makes it really pop.
You have this is my signature, and this is the documented signature of Herman Upmann. I imagine.
Yeah. I FaceTimed him right before this podcast just to make sure that it was his signature. I said, Herman, was this?
He looks well for his age.
He does, man. This was the rendering of him on the box. I don't know if we can get that. His top hat and his little.
But I know Kyle got some shots of it, so you got some pictures of the box, right? So check our social media out. We'll be posting some of those pictures this week. But also all the photos you guys see, it's on Instagram is probably the best way to see some of the work individually. I try to tag him in all of our posts when we're posting his pictures, but it's at Kyle B. Smith Photo. So check him out on that. But I mean, we'll be able to see it on that, or I know online also a lot of the sites will have pictures of the marketing, the packaging on this. But it's very nice. It's almost simplistic but elegant.
Yeah, and I think that's really what they were going. Nate, what do you have?
When I look at the box, like when I think of a Romeo box, when I think of a Monte Cristo box, that looks like an Upmann box.
Yeah.
Because I think about some of the other cigars in the H. Upmann line, that looks like an Upmann box. So it's nice that you guys are keeping that consistency with each one of those product lines. Like, no, we're going to do this cigar. It's not going to look like a Monte Cristo White Series box or an Espada box. It's not going to look like a Romeo box. No, it's going to look like an H. Upmann box.
There's distinction between the lines.
Yeah.
And you started this kind of packaging, I think, with the banker.
Yeah.
With but this is a 20 count. Bankers were 15 originally.
15
so
count,
I mean, but it's the same kind of shaped box, which I like. So
yeah.
I feel like
the
simpleness of the box draws my eye to it more than all the crazy stuff we see on boxes.
Yeah.
I would look at that before I'd look at anything else. Like that's how my mind works when I look at things.
I'm gonna give you some critique on it though.
Yeah, please.
Well, in the field testing. So in our shop tinderbox, we use trays, so it's not a walk-in. The box has punch to it, in my opinion. It's got some pop to it. And I know this is not the greatest lighting in the garage. It's a lot better. Thank you to Sean for funding the studio lighting or part of it. But we're not gonna be able to see if we have more. But with the gray and the copper, it's a little bit muted. The copper doesn't pop as much as it does on the box. I don't know. You guys see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you see it in the box and walk-in humidors. When you smoke the cigar, you don't need a band on this. It's a great cigar. Getting to be halfway. You got to have it. Yeah, it's almost like it's not. I mean, because it does have a sheen to it, and again, or like a gloss to the copper. It's got a little bit of that, and maybe it is the lighting. But you know what I'm saying? It's almost. I would hate for you guys to walk by like in a shop like ours and see it, and really like we'd have to have the light pointed right at it. That's the only thing I'll say on this, and it's not a dig because again, in the light when you're looking at it, it does have a little bit of the like reflective type characteristics of it. So it does have that, but you really have to look at it. But again, that might be a good thing because it goes into that subtlety we were talking about with the marketing. It's very elegant and there's some subtleties to it. Josh is like, don't say that.
No, absolutely not, man. I mean,
He's
that's
like, give it back.
That's what we're doing. But so I'm going to take that and I'm going to use that constructive criticism as a positive.
There was Intensivo, the Gispert that you guys did.
Yeah, same
thing. That was an AJ blend, or it is an AJ blend. Yeah, great cigar. But I said the same thing. I don't know if it was to you or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it might have been when we were out in Connecticut. But it kind of had the same. I don't know if it was copper on that, but it was a black band with the same type of thing. And I was like, it's a killer cigar, but at least in our setup, you're gonna like the boxes had some pop to it, and then when it's sitting there on its own, it's like the wrapper looks good. It's kind of a cool, but you really have to look close to see what that band is.
Yeah.
And maybe it is just that copper. Maybe it's my eyes. I don't know if you guys agree with me.
No. So I agree with you 100%. Here's what I'm going to say to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I believe when marketing comes up with not only a cigar but the marketing material behind it, the bands, the boxes, we're thinking of a typical walk-in humidor.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what they're going after, and anybody who puts it in trays, it just kind of comes as secondary.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
It's a numbers. You don't be sorry. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, it's a numbers game.
But the sheen and the wrapper itself is what I hope will sell it, but more so the actual cigar. So where you're going to smoke this cigar and where you picked it up, I don't know, but you're going to come in to a place like the Tinderbox and it won't be missed, or to somebody who's just walking in doesn't know what they want. They're going to look through it and they're going to see the wrapper and they're going to want it because if you're going in and you're buying a cigar based on the ring, the cigar ring, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you could walk away disappointed.
Absolutely.
You could say, oh, that's a cool band. Hopefully, and whatever the stigmatism behind that is. I'm not really sure, but I really think that this cigar stands alone with its wrapper.
Yes.
Take it one step further back to the original banker, and that used to have a body band on it. Do you remember that? Right?
Yeah.
It had, I believe, a foot band, and then it would have a type of tissue.
It had
type
a lot
paper,
on there.
right? And then the actual green band, which really stood out. We took that away last year.
Simplified it.
And simplified it, but
Yeah.
we didn't do it to yes, it was to simplify it, but why it was done was because we were taken away from that wrapper. And anybody
can't
who
see the
walked
cigar.
by that
Yeah.
cigar, you couldn't, right? And so we were doing ourselves a disservice with you not being able to see, this luscious Ecuadorian Cubano wrapper,
Yeah.
and which is the banker.
That makes total sense.
That's kind of like the reserve that we have in the tubo, the Romeo and Julieta
Yeah.
reserve.
Yeah.
We have it in the tube. You can't see just how nice that wrapper is. But I think this cigar, while some people may walk by it and may not catch their eye, with as good as it is and the price point, I think once those of us in the shop, like if it's someone coming in looking for a recommendation, I think as soon as we mention this cigar and they actually look at it, then it's going to really catch their eye and they're going to be all in.
Well, I think this is one that if you got a staff at your local cigar shop, or you're looking into things, you do your own research, you listen to podcasts like this is one that you're going to come back to, that's the biggest thing. So everything I said about it, that's that initial thing when you're looking at a sea of cigars. You know what I mean? Same thing with whiskeys. You go in, a liquor store. If you haven't done it, there's something to be said about too much marketing. Too much flash, and then you got a dog turd with a band on it, or you have, piss in a bottle, basically like that. But it looked cool. You're not going back for a second one,
Right.
I think this is one that this is what I will say about the band. Again, it's critique. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
If I say only nice things when Josh is here and he's from a company, let alone a sponsor, and it's like I almost have to make sure it's a level playing field here.
Yeah.
I'm not kissing his ass. What I like about it is that it's different, and that was the second part about the marketing behind this, the band on it. Because you're absolutely right, it shows off the wrapper leaf. If you know anything about it, if you have an attending humidor manager or someone that's helping you out, if you're doing your own research, that's what's going to sell the first one, in my opinion. The people that come in, what's new? That's going to be like, hey, we actually have a new Upmann. Or the people that come in because of the name recognition, they're going to be like, I smoke Upmanns, I smoke this, well, have you had the new Herman's badge? No, I haven't heard of that. They're going to smoke that, and depending on what they like, if it's a medium-bodied, medium plus, they like that. They smoke other Ecuadorian Habano wrapper cigars. That's going to get people back in it. And Nate said the price point. So depending on your tobacco tax, you're looking at $10 to $13. You know what I mean, state by state.
Yeah.
That's what's I think gonna to put it up. Tom Paul says, how many different Upmanns can we have? It's an interesting question, and I don't know
Never
if you
enough.
want to
Never enough, Tom.
Never enough. It says Altidus, and this is a good one. I mean, and hopefully you're comfortable with this. It's a good one. We have a viewer here, Tom Paul. Altidus still pumping out Dutch Masters and Phillies as 98% of their revenue. I don't know if you have statistics on that, if you've been looking into their finances, but 98% of the revenue and not caring about their premium line. I'll field that to a point that, first of all, business is business. So, I mean, when you and Josh, you probably know these numbers regardless, and it's interesting because when you get to be the big boy on the block and you have other product lines, I think it does. I mean, like, Bud Light, we talk about that sometimes, beer, you have Bud Light, Miller Lite, all that stuff. They are the lion's share of what's sold in the United States and around the world.
Yeah.
They're doing something right.
Absolutely.
But they also have other projects, and I think when you look at premium cigars, to speak to that, Altidus is such a big company. I'm not defending it by any means because everyone's entitled to their opinion. But you got to pay the bills to do things like this. But premium cigars in general are very, very minor. It's like 2 or 3% of the overall tobacco products sold in the world.
Yeah.
It's a very, very minor stake in it. So, I mean, what do you think about a question or comment like that?
I'm not even going to field.
Okay.
I mean that question, but this is what I mean. I mean, no offense, to Tom. I'm in the premium market.
Yeah,
I'm not in domestics. I don't care about domestics because I care about premium.
Yeah.
And I know that my company and myself stand behind the cigars that we put out. And I came from a different company, and when I came to Altadis. And I believe we've had this conversation before. I went into a couple of meetings with some higher ups, and I said, "Listen, as my time at other companies, I saw, or what I interpreted as Altadis had lost a step or two." And what I mean by that is it seemed like there was some passion lost.
Yeah.
And they were just throwing different projects up against the wall and seeing what stuck. And I had nothing to do with it, but there was a change, and I think the change had started to happen before I came on board, and it's so awesome to get to be a part of this because I got to see our company get its passion back. And it started with the different collaborations with Plasencia, and the group of De Maestros,
AJ.
and then going to AJ,
Yeah.
right? And you saw that resurgence of H. Upmann with the H. Upmann by AJ Fernandez, which was the Nicaraguan one that we talked about. And we've done 2 other collaboration blends in the H. Upmann, which is the group of De Maestro, Connecticut. You're losing out if you haven't smoked that one. It's a wonderful Connecticut. And then that one that we referred to earlier, which was the Jose Mendez Espanol. Mm-hmm. And that's the one that utilizes some Andullo fermented tobacco in the filler. And, I mean, these are phenomenal blends. If you're not smoking them, hey, it's your right not to smoke them, but you're really losing out because a lot of passion has went into those cigars. And I go back. I'm all premium, and I know my company is all premium, and we have a lot of passion, and there's a lot of passion into what we're doing, both on the marketing side, but most definitely in the field when it comes to Rafael visiting Plasencia, visiting AJ Fernandez, putting those different blends together with them, going back to the group of De Maestros, saying, hey, this is what we need to tweak. Going back, those group of De Maestros, they'll smoke 7 cigars in a sitting. They meet once a week in La Romana at Tabacalera Garcia, and they'll sit around a table and have a round table discussion and have 7 cigars around them and just get to smoke them. You tell me that's not passion?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Well, to answer, Tom, your next question you had here, and I appreciate the feedback because I will say, before I get to this next question, it's interesting because a company, again, when I say business is business, you're talking about 2 different divisions. Like you guys don't even talk to the factories that are putting out Dutch Masters fillies, the machine-made stuff, all of that.
Absolutely.
So you do have 2 different divisions of many. But when Jose Cejas going to put out another line, unfortunately, never, to my knowledge, Jose Cejas passed away a little while back.
Yes.
So that's where you have the Grupos de Maestros, is that Jose Cejas had some of his signature lines still being available, but it was one of those things that was not phased out. I mean, some of his blends are still around.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's some of the staple blends of Altadis, like Monte Cristos and some of the others, some Romeos and things like that. So, unfortunately, Tom, when Jose Cejas is going to put out another line, it's unfortunately not possible because he did pass away.
Yeah.
But I mean that happens. I mean, we lost a several, just legends in the industry over the last several years, and that it's part of it. And that's where we were talking about the heritage of like the Upmann brand. I'll say that is that you have this stuff, and we've had. So I'll bring up that Cuban name again, the Hirochi Robina, who's going to be coming here along with Rafael Nodal to the Smoking 10 event. He's a 5th-generation Cuban farmer, and there's some great things you can read on a lot of these different families or different factories and things like that, just like any other business. When one person is kind of not phased out because they're not doing well, but phased out because life happens, they're getting older, and they have to teach the next generations to keep this going. It's not
Right.
It's not like it's a recipe that you can hand down and be like, cool, like we're just going to keep making these or make new stuff based off of this. You have these just knowledge
So
libraries.
You got to pass on like palettes and tastings and all kinds of stuff in that area, right?
Yeah, and everything. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, with anything, it's. I forget who it was that they were looking through, and forgive me because this is a kind of a botched up history here, but there was a company, and I'm drawing a blank who it was, but they found notebooks of someone that had passed with a bunch of different blends and facts and things that were in their head that they never passed down, because just like anything in history or anything that you're trying to pass down, you're going to forget more when you're in this industry or another. You forget more than you've learned.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and it's something like that. So it's good. I mean, Tom, I appreciate the questions, and that's
Absolutely.
what the Facebook feed's all about. So I will agree with Josh, and I've been that person before, and I'll equate it to the bourbon listeners, and we're going to switch over to whiskey here shortly. But it's the same thing we talk about with like Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, things like that. They look at it as these are just like the well ones everyone drinks. Jim Beam.
Right.
Something like that. We've talked about it before on the podcast, where it's like, if you think that Jim Beam is just concerned about that, yeah, Jim Beam, the regular Jim Beam, that's what keeps the lights on. Yeah. It also provides them the opportunity to make things like the different Bookers out there. It provides them the money to be able to put out small batches that if you're like, oh, Bookers, and in the back it says, product of Jim Beam Distillery.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, Jim Beam makes this? It's like, this is really good. Jim Beam sucks. It's like, or if that's their opinion, and it's like, yeah, they make it. Like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Nate, what do you got?
For the people that come down on Fireball, who makes Fireball, Steve?
That is a Buffalo Trace product.
Yeah. So for those of you that love Blanton's, suck on.
I
that
mean,
one.
it's not suck on that. Like I don't want that attitude on here. It's simply, and you guys can like have your opinion. I think is a great point, and I think that's something that when you're good at what you do to really have a successful business, especially in the cigar industry. It's funny, we've had other companies on here where in the retail side where I'm coming from, it's you'll start recommending something and they're like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like a medium-bodied cigar. I like this tobacco. I like these cigars. And I'm saying stuff like, to bring up someone that's not Altadis and someone that's not as big of a company corporate-wise, but someone that has gotten big enough that the name is, I'll recommend, well, have you had this Rocky Patel? And they say, I don't like Rocky Patel.
Right.
Like, you don't like him as a person? You don't like what? And it's like, you're just like, what have you smoked? Have you smoked a lot of it? Like, no, I smoked one or two of it. I just don't really like their stuff or his stuff, they'll usually say. And he's kind of in that same boat, is that he's diversified his portfolio, that it's like, it used to be mostly Honduran stuff. Now he's doing a lot of Nicaraguan stuff. Now he's using Connecticut broadleaf in some things. And it's like, there's a lot of diversity. So if you're looking for it, I think with Altadis, these are the blends, the stuff you're putting out. Josh, I'll kind of reiterate that. I have been also impressed recent years with some of the Altadis products. Because, again, we have a lot of people that are every day 2, 3, 4 cigars a day, and they are not the people buying a Monte Cristo White. They're not buying a Monte Cristo White series. If I took the band off and I said, are you looking for something like a little lighter, a little mild medium, like try this, I would almost put money. I would put money on that. They'd be like, this is a good cigar. What is this? Monte Cristo White series. Really? I haven't smoked one of these in like 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it. I mean, like, you can have a big name and it's going to be something that's going to help you in the masses. And again, Tom's in there, sell the rich, eat with the masses, sell to the masses, eat with the rich. I think I know what he's saying there, but it's something that, again, I think it comes down to business. But I like what you said about passion, and I think it's coming through with this cigar and some other ones that you guys are doing right now.
I got a question. So, a new person off the street, or maybe just getting into cigars, where would you land this with them? Would this be something you would recommend? Would you, like, where would it fall in that ballpark of somebody new walking in?
The Herman's batch, is that what you're referring to, Shannon?
Yeah, while we're smoking, right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Right
yeah,
here.
yeah. So I would recommend it, but I would recommend it as an after dinner cigar to a new smoker. And I mean, that's being very specific. And why? Because new smokers usually I will point them to something that is mild, something too creamy, a little bit woody, something that is not going to be offensive on the palate, because I would be afraid that if I would tell a new smoker to go and smoke a heavy cigar, it's going to turn them green.
Right.
Right. They're going to be offended a little bit and not really want to smoke cigars, and I've just done that person a disservice. So I would say, hey, listen, this is a super enjoyable cigar. Since you're not familiar with cigars, I would definitely, go enjoy a nice steak dinner, enjoy
That's just good advice. That's just good advice, regardless. We're talking about cigars or not. Go enjoy a steak dinner. For everyone out there listening.
But
you owe it to yourself.
Have this cigar afterwards, and you're going to enjoy it a little bit more, I believe.
Okay.
Just because you might not be used to the complexity or the complexity that this cigar brings, might be a little bit overbearing to a palate of somebody who's just now getting into cigars.
See, and I would say this, Shannon, that I've gotten to the point now, and I completely appreciate what Josh is saying, because I think that's like the more common. And it's when you say disservice, I think that's doing a service to a lot of people if they're like coming in looking for one cigar. We don't, smoke a whole lot. I smoke like once a year. I had it at a wedding one time. I was on a beach and I was, smoking a Cuban that this guy sold me off the beach. Whatever it is, you're just a novice smoker. Yeah. My strategy, and I love that. So you guys, Josh, and so many other companies now are doing these sampler packs with like 3, 4, 5 cigars. This is something that if I didn't have any of those sampler packs, when I have someone come in, they're looking at stuff, and they're looking at, hey, I'm trying to get into cigar smoking. It is maybe not go full bodied. I'm not saying like I'm going to give you like a predominantly Ligero, which is that top priming we were talking about, that's going to knock your socks off. Because there are people in the industry that they mess with people. And they're literally like, oh, you don't smoke much? Yeah, this is really mild. Here's a La Flor Dominicana double Ligero.
As you're throwing up in
the
corner.
This is the deal. You know what I mean? But I think this cigar is one that I would basically – thank you, Kyle, very much.
See you, buddy.
Look forward to those photos. This is one I would throw in.
Okay.
So to Josh's point, you may not – anytime we get into something, we get into whiskey and stuff like that, you say, oh, this is good. You know what I mean? Like someone would be like, oh, this is really good. And it's like you almost insult the person that gave it to you because, like, well, that's a $130 bottle. Like, I'm glad you like it. Can I have another glass? No, you know what? You don't drink much. You said it's good. How about this one? This one's $25. I hope you think it's as good. Not because I want you to try different things.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this cigar would go in with, like, I'd say, all right, I'm going to get that mild, creamy, kind of smooth, not very offensive to the palate. And then I'd throw in maybe one more that's mild to medium.
Okay.
Because that's my advice anymore to people that are trying to get into it. Mm-hmm. If you're truly trying to get into it and you give me $40, $50, I'm going to sell you 4 cigars around that $10 price point.
Okay.
Okay? And I'm going to have a mild to medium, medium full. So this would be in that medium full side. And I want you to come back and I want you to say, all right, take a picture on your phone of the bands that you liked.
Yeah.
Which ones you like the most. Rank these 4. This is for people that are really trying to get into it. You want to actually try different things, because I've seen it on the other side. The same person comes in and they're like, yeah, I've been smoking for 15 years and I only smoke mild stuff. And I almost look at it as like, when was the last time you tried even a medium, like we classify?
Yeah.
Or you have the people come in, I only smoke mild stuff. Like, what do you like? And they're like, well, I like, I like Liga Privada No. 9s. And I'm like, that's not a mild cigar.
No.
But there's an association there with the mild and smooth, and those two factors.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Smooth, it's not like it doesn't hurt my throat. It's not harsh. You think full body, you equate it to harsh, bite, all that stuff. Full body can be quite smooth.
Absolutely.
This, I would say, smoking it, and because we're drinking, we're in the garage, I can't really classify the strength of it. But flavor-wise, I'm going to put this medium full.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flavor.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I was smoking this fresh, before noon or something like that, maybe I had breakfast and that's about it, I would probably think that this is going to get me like a medium plus as far as the strength. And I would want a maybe not their first cigar to be this, but I would want it to be in their first 10 cigars.
Right.
You know, bounce back and forth. And that's my advice to anyone out there that's more on the bourbon side listening to this, or just in the life topic side of this podcast. If you're trying stuff, don't limit yourself. And if you're like the gentleman that was, Tom out there, when don't necessarily, and it's your money to spend, so I completely understand if you don't want to, like, hey, Upmann is part of Altadis and I don't really smoke the big boy brands. That it's your money to spend. That's absolutely it. But we had Raphael, who I don't know if he's still on, but he says, glad you're enjoying the new H. Upmann Herman's batch. And we are, and that's the whole thing, is that there's different people behind these things. And I, luckily being in the industry, I try anything that we bring in.
Yeah.
When a rep comes in and they're gracious enough and generous enough to hand us a sample, I'm lighting it up. And I mean, like, that was the whole thing is with this one. I mean, I try to, and I know there's several people that are on both sides of it, but you try to be honest with the rep. You talk to them about it.
Yeah.
If you're like, what, I didn't really like it. And one of the worst insults, I think, to reps, or especially the manufacturers or the blenders, is that it tastes a little young. Because I know when you say that to someone, they're like, because they know the history of it, they're like, it's got 4 years on the wrapper. Like, like, how much? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? But it's the feedback, and I think that's what all works.
Yeah. That's well put.
So, Raphael, if you're still listening, I think you knocked it out of the park with this one. I think this is going to be a great smoke, and honestly, I'm surprised it's at that $10 mark. I would think that this, and Upmann has that. Besides
That's
the
an incredible
175th
price point for this.
Yeah, I think that you throw a different brand on this, whether it's an Altadis brand or not. You throw a Monte Cristo band on this, and all of a sudden it went up $2. Just because that's what people expect, not because it's a business ploy or anything. But I think that people would pay a couple bucks more for this if they knew what it was, if they already smoked it.
No, it's absolutely right. I mean, and that's marketing 101, right? I mean, you put Gucci on something, and it's gonna sell for hundreds of dollars, right? And that resonates with all of us. I mean,
Louis Vuitton leather is not that much better than any other leather that's out there.
It's not leather.
What is it?
I just got you right
What
there.
is it?
It's a canvas.
That makes it even cheaper, right?
Exactly.
What the fuck?
Yep. Monogrammed.
I'm returning that whole luggage set.
There you go. Yep. That's it. But I mean, it really is. I mean, they're going to put behind it, what that you won't see anything that dawns a Monte Cristo, whether it be a hat, a shirt, a cutter, a lighter, that is going to be cheesy. It's very well thought out when a Monte Cristo label gets put on something. So, think about that. When Raphael and the group of the maestros go into blending, they know what they're looking for, and I mean, it's really incredible. So, well done, and it's a super enjoyable cigar.
It is.
Absolutely.
All right, so having Josh on and having this new cigar, we get a little carried away. So this is a little more cigar heavy, but I do want to get into the whiskey here.
Yeah.
For those of you that are listening at this point in part one with the Bourbon and BS podcast, Nate looked this up a little bit. I want to give, I looked it up. This, again, was a gift from one of our listeners, which I appreciate. Again, that's another way to support if you are in the Columbus area or if you're willing to share. That it's amazing that we can do this and have people that are interested, and we're getting more and more of that. So I appreciate that, Jerry, for doing that. But this is Traverse City Whiskey Company. Now, I've seen the bottles. I've never had anything from them yet. Nate, have you? Have you guys? Nate says no.
No, this is the first time I heard of it.
First time.
All right, so
This isn't even available in the state of Ohio.
well, that might be why I haven't seen it on the shelf.
There you go.
But it was founded by Traverse City native Chris Fredrickson and his partners Jared and Monte. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Moti Monte. They discovered that the great grandfather had been granted whiskey distilling patents in the 1920s. So it's got some history there with the family, which is kind of cool as well. So Chris Fredrickson actually did to look back to their roots. It says on this that it's aged 3 years or more, but everything I'm reading online, and I appreciate all these great whiskey blogs and pages to provide some of this if you can't get in touch with them. But it says now officially clocks in at 4 years and is bottled at 86 proof. Is that what this says? Yep. So 43%, 86 proof. They also have a barrel proof, a rye as well. But this one, according to what I'm looking at, you got an age of 4 years, and I'll give the mash bill what I found here. So 71% corn, 25% rye, and 4% barley. So definitely corn heavy here. What do you think, Nate? Do you have some other information, or what do you think of the whiskey here?
I get a lot of vanilla up front. I get just a little bit of spice, but that spice or the heat doesn't really build. Because like when I'm sitting here, I tend to take a sip, swish it around, down the hatch.
Right.
When I'm at home, I find myself when I'm drinking whiskey almost like a chipmunk. I'll sit there and I'll take a sip, and I'll forget to swallow, and it just sits there and sits there and sits there in my palate. And then by the time I actually swallow, it's like so much heat, it overwhelms my palate. This doesn't do that.
Right.
And for it only being a 4+ year, I'm surprised there's not more heat with as much corn in it. I'm surprised that it doesn't taste like some of the Ohio corn heavy whiskeys that we've had.
Yeah.
This is better than that. And one thing I noticed before we started, I held this up to a bottle of Buffalo Trace, very similar in color, but this has a cloudiness to it, whereas the Buffalo Trace is very transparent. This, it's got some cloudiness to it. Like if I get
the bottle's just dirty. It had some dust on it earlier.
Are you sure?
No, I'll get the Windex out and check it out.
Okay, but no, I find this to be very enjoyable. Do we know what he paid for this?
He did not share. This was a gift. What I just saw, you're looking at suggested retail according to the site I was on, which is breakingbourbon.com, which is a great one. Comes up. They got great search engine optimization because they do a lot of stuff on that. But it's $33 MSRP.
That's a good buy.
What do you guys think of this, Shannon? What do you getting
I'm really
out of this,
digging
or what
it.
are you thinking?
Like the first sip kind of hits the side of my tongue, a little tingle, goes
Yeah.
down smooth, and when it hits my belly, it's just like a nice finish, nice little warm finish. Nothing crazy over the top, just sits in there nice and smooth.
Yeah.
I'm really digging it.
Josh, you're taking a sip right now. Mm-hmm.
Letting it marinate.
Oh, boy.
Letting it marinate.
All right.
No, it's
We'll all wait while Josh reflects on this for a moment. Dead air is always good on a podcast or a radio
I
show.
apologize and hear me sip a little bit there.
like we're there with you.
I mean it's well balanced. I'll agree with Nate when he said that there's not that much heat. And you'd think with the mash bill that it has that it would bring a little bit more heat. What proof?
So it's 86 proof.
86 proof. Yeah. That's it. I mean, I would say that's pretty true. I mean, it doesn't burn. I mean, it's a good drinking. I think it pairs well with the cigar.
Yeah,
like Steve said, I think something with a little bit more rye would have paired a little bit better with the Herman's batch. But I think
25% rye.
Is that what it said?
25% rye
Yeah.
in a
Go back
bourbon
to
is
that.
actually a pretty decent amount. I mean,
That's what they're claiming on this. Is
Some places-
71%.
Yep. I inverted the barley and rye. Yeah.
Some places may even call that a high rye bourbon
Mm-hmm.
at 25%. Because we had one that was called a high rye bourbon, and I think the rye content was
Was that
28.
the rabbit?
28, yeah. That's
The
right
rabbit
there.
hole?
That was the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, the high gold
memory
that we
there.
had. The part of the not the story, but the way it's put out kind of reminds me of when we did the peg leg porker.
Yeah.
You have a place, that's in Traverse City. Peg leg porker was down in Tennessee, and basically they're distilling it, and then it's going out through a bar. This is going out through a cocktail lounge up in Traverse City. So it's basically being distilled in Traverse City and put out through that cocktail lounge in Traverse City, Stillhouse Cocktail Bar. That's what I got from their website, from Traverse City Whiskey Company's website. But I mean, so it's available on a few places online, but it's not available in Ohio. So he probably got it on a trip up into Michigan.
Yeah, he was up there actually. I'll say, I mean, it's a very good sipping, and I say sipping, not like end of the night, like a barrel proof. They do have a barrel proof of this, which drinking this, I want to drink the barrel proof clearly. But I mean, at the 86 proof, for $35, this would, and I'm gonna say this, I'm looking at the one remaining bottle of Eagle Rare not everyone keeps bottles of whiskey in their garage. I realize that, but we're in the garage, and I have some bottles of whiskey in the garage and in the house, but on different floors of the house. But looking at the Eagle Rare, that's always been a go-to for the $30+ mark, right in that 30 to 35, depending on where you're at. If this was available and I couldn't get a bottle of Eagle Rare, and I had $35 to spend on a bottle, I wouldn't feel bad about getting another one of these if I was having all you guys over and say, to share, because especially if not everyone's had this. This is something like, hey, if you guys haven't had this, you should definitely try it, because I think it's easy. I think this is something that, going back to your question, Shannon, about cigars, if you have someone just trying out whiskeys, bourbons, and all that stuff,
absolutely,
this is one that I think that you would be able to basically give to anyone that wants to try whiskey. If you don't like this at all, it's too hot for you, you may not really enjoy whiskey yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just not your thing. But I get the vanilla a little. There's that creaminess and all that to it, but there's a little sweetness to it.
I think,
the end.
Yeah, I got a little bit of sweetness too.
I think with the little bit of heat that this has, but it has a good amount of flavor, I think this might stand up well in a cocktail as well.
It would, and I just put a little bit of water in it, which is where it gets dangerous, because it really took it down even more. So there's like we're not saying there's much heat, but there's not really any punch to it. There's just good flavor.
Like, a lot of people don't like the finish of a bourbon in their belly. This, I think somebody could really take this in as a beginner, and it wouldn't push them over the edge. Like, man, I can't drink this stuff.
I sleep better with bourbon in my belly, I think, to speak to that point.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even remember sleeping.
But it's not one of those, like, there's no...
Just leave it.
There's no heat going down.
No.
There's no, that Kentucky hug.
Right.
There's none of that. It's all
Michigan
up in the
hug.
palate. It's a Michigan hug. Yeah.
It says on there, and so Traverse City, I've not been, but I've heard they have some of the clearest waters in the area, like in the Midwest or northern regions. Easy. But it says on the label, and I like it. There's a story there. We've got that. I always enjoy that with it. But on the back of the bottle, you got, in Traverse City, we spent endless summer nights by the lake with nothing but a circle of friends, a campfire, and a bottle of whiskey, which I have friends that have been up there. Jerry, I think, was up there. It's exactly what I envisioned Jerry doing when he was up there. Campfire, friends, bottle of whiskey, maybe a couple cigars. That's what they left off on this. But here's to more memorable summer nights for our hometown and yours. Cheers. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like everything about it. They're not trying to be too fancy. They're not trying to, charge. The thing I don't care anymore about with some of these whiskeys that are coming out that are the smaller batches or smaller distilleries, and if they're truly distilling it, which is fantastic, but, they're coming in at price points of $40, $50. If this truly is like $30-some,
yep,
you're coming to play like with the big boys.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I don't know what the barrel proof, I think it's said on here, barrel proof. So that barrel proof, same mash bill, it's a proof of 112.
Okay.
$75.
Wow. Their website listed it somewhere usually between $115 and $120.
So maybe
Traverse
this
website,
may be outdated here. I don't know when they published this, but
they do 5 different whiskeys.
Right.
I would be really interested in trying, because of some of the other bourbons that I like, I'd be really interested in trying their port barrel finish.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Because that actually comes in at the exact same proof as what this one does.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested in trying that one. They also do 100% rye as well,
which is around that 40.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to try.
They also do a cherry edition, which I get it, but
35%, so
No, thank
70
you.
proof. No,
But
No
the value.
it probably tastes like a cocktail.
Yeah,
With this one, with the one we're drinking,
yeah.
the value is there. I think that's the one thing that I will say also. That's what matches up with the Upmann as far as price point. This is an everyday, every man's
what do you
cigars
think?
and every man's whiskey.
Would you think this would be a pre-meal, like a pre-meal drink after?
You think dessert, Sean, in the audience? It's got sweet.
It's got a hint of
Brings
sweet.
out a sweetness in the cigar.
No, but I think, when I think, and I think I said it before, is that like when I think of it like an after dinner, like a dessert, like dessert for me, like after dinner is like a stronger whiskey. I want a little heat. I had that steak dinner, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had maybe this maybe before.
I feel like this is before maybe.
This is an appetizer.
You're waiting for your table or something like that, and you're sipping on something.
This is the one you bring to the table from the bar.
Exactly.
And then you order the red wine with the steak, you know what I mean? And then afterwards, then you go maybe with, if I had to guess, I'd go with the barrel proof of this afterwards.
Right, absolutely.
And then I'd Uber home or Lyft or something like that. Because when I say wine with a meal, I'm talking about like a bottle of wine. I'm not talking about like, let me I'm not ordering off the kids menu. What do you guys think? We kind of alluded to the pairing. Shannon, what do you think of the pairing with the H. Upmann Herman's batch and then the Traverse City?
For me, I think it's like, it goes together perfectly. I just get
nice
a little bit of sweet of this, the nice full body of this. It just, to me, it complements the whole marriage of it, I guess you want to say. And
I like it.
I could definitely sit by the campfire, have this, have that, and be a happy camper.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't think either one takes away from the other.
No, absolutely not.
Like, this is, probably what we would consider to be a little bit milder of a whiskey.
Yeah.
A little bit medium to full of a cigar. So some people might think the cigar is going to overpower the whiskey. I think the whiskey stands out on itself.
The issue with that for me is that when you have a stronger cigar, and again, it's not overpowering to a point that you can't taste it, but it is overpowering just enough that the whiskey goes down just easier enough. Like it's just a little bit more. And then you run out of the bottle, and then you stand up to go to the bathroom, and you realize you just drank half a bottle of whiskey, and you had one cigar. Yeah, whatever you do, things happen. What do you think?
What do I think?
I know you already kind of mentioned it, but in summary of this part.
Yeah. Summary. It's a great pairing. I think it's a great value. Sit here and sip. I mean, perfect pairing for this. I very much enjoy the sweetness that I'm getting, the balance from the cigar. It really pairs well.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's where we'll leave it. We're going a little long on the first part. Nothing terrible, which I appreciate. Again, having Josh here with the wealth of knowledge and having
absolutely
sharing a brand new cigar that most people haven't smoked. I don't think many people have smoked this. I mean, this wasn't at a trade show. This was not something that was released as samples for many people. I mean, this is now just hitting the market.
Yeah.
Which I like. I like a lot of that. As far as some of the companies are taking a strategy again where they're releasing things throughout the year and not just overpowering everyone or overloading everyone with like, hey, here's our 5 new blends. And I like that. So this is something that I would encourage. My part, I give a thumbs up to both of them. I think if you guys have a chance to buy a bottle of this, if it's $30 to $40, depending on where you are, based off of what I'm looking at, 33, whatever. So it's $30 to $40. This is a bottle that I would definitely grab if you're looking for something that's really easy drinking, a little sweetness, the smooth creaminess of the vanilla that Nate was saying. And then with this H. Upmann Herman's batch, I think this is a cigar that people, once they try it, especially, I think this is something that you guys and everyone included. The whole company, H. Upmann's name. You talk about a signature. I can't really speak to the fact that whether or not this is the one to put Herman Upmann's name on, but I don't think he'd be upset about it. If he smoked this, he'd be like, "No, this is a good cigar. This is a quality cigar," which I think is what you need.
Stamp of approval.
I think that's what you need. Yeah, you can't put this is my ultimate cigar. That's tough to say.
No, I can't tell you how many guys come up to me in shops and events hey, what's your favorite cigar?
Oh, all the time.
Man, I mean, I'll give you a list of 10.
I'll give you my top 5 for the last 30 days.
There you go.
You know?
There you go.
We all have our go-tos. This is one that's definitely, I mean, I'll say it again. This is a great cigar. I hope you guys definitely try it.
Yeah.
I hope you guys try this whiskey. And again, thank you to Jerry Dezenski for donating this bottle. Very, very gracious of that gift. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jerry.
Or thank you,
Thanks,
Jerry.
Jerry.
And Josh, thank you for bringing these cigars. You have a treat for Beyond the BS in part 2. I have it covered up. We haven't really talked about it yet, but
Good.
I like having you around on these podcasts because you seem to bring some just buried treasures sometimes.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, it's really cool. We'll see what happens for the second part of the show.
Absolutely.
I got a little something special for us.
For those of you, again, that have not listened much, you're just tuning in, you're just starting to follow the podcast, whether you're on the Facebook Live right now or you're listening to the audio, what I would like to encourage you guys to do is tune in for part 2, which is Beyond the BS. And that's really where, Josh is here for multiple reasons. He is the perfect complement as far as a second person next to me here for what we're going to talk about. And it's going to be about Shannon's story and how the three of us and everyone listening can kind of have a conversation. But it's about, what do we call this? The share your growth.
Yeah.
And that was something that Shannon and I talked about. And I think that this is something that is going to be a great conversation going forward. So,
absolutely.
Thank you guys very much. I want to thank the sponsors for Bourbon and BS Podcast Part 1. Altadis USA. We talked enough about some of your products tonight, but definitely thank you guys for the support. This has been a huge driving force for this podcast to have the success it has, and we appreciate the continued support, Josh, and everything you've done personally to ensure that. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for this cigar, H. Upmann Herman's Batch, the Banker. Definitely check it out when it hits the shelf and you're looking for what's new. This is the one that you want to absolutely grab and try. Also, Tinderbox at Easton, again, that's what brings us all together, the constant support of Brian Joyce and the staff and the establishment. Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. And that is, again, since we don't have this on the shelves yet, the H. Upmann Nicaragua by A.J. Fernandez with that beautiful blue band on it. That's the one we're going to have 15% off. So if you guys are in the Columbus area, please stop by, grab it, take advantage of that. Mention Bourbon and BS Podcast. You'll get 15% off the cigars. And that is basically unlimited. You can buy a couple of them. You can buy a box. If you guys are ordering through phone or you're not in the area, you want to contact us through the podcast, or you can contact myself, or if you have Nate Hale, who's a part of the podcast crew here, if you have their information. Also, just let us know if you want us to ship you something. We'll get it together for you. 5 cigar minimum. We'll ship it out to you with that 15% discount as well. And also be a cigar company, as always, for the continued support. I do have one Rabito here in my bag, so I saw one that Nate had as well. So there's always some BS around the garage. So thank you guys very much. Stay tuned, or if you're listening to the audio again, listen to part 2, which is going to be 102.2 on your audio podcast listeners. Share it, like it, review it, and also check out our Patreon page. Thank you guys very much. Cheers, guys, for part 1 of Bourbon and BS Podcast. Wow, you got an empty glass. Come on, man. All right, thanks, guys. All right, does anyone need a bathroom break? Does everyone need a bathroom break? That's my intermission question. If everyone's good, then yeah, go ahead, Nate. And I'm going to go ahead and share this again for topic time here.
So, Josh, I know you're on the road a lot. You travel a lot. You have multiple states that you cover. Shannon, you were a truck driver, so you were always driving around. When you guys are going out of town, do you, by chance, stop at a liquor store there and see what's unique to where you're at, something that you maybe can't get in Ohio, like this Traverse City whiskey?
I never had the time frame to stop and do stuff like that, so no.
I absolutely do. And you know, I tonight has really opened it up, and what I mean by opened it up is I was oftentimes before, when I'd get the time to stop, I'd stop and see if they had anything a little bit more rare. right? Stuff that I'm in the Ohio Valley. I'm in Cincinnati, right across the river from Kentucky, and we can't get half the things that you guys are drinking up here because they're not on the shelf. And so I'm stopping to see what's available. I'm always checking for my father-in-law. He likes some Blantons, and want to make sure that I keep him up on that. But too many times have I passed by and passed by things that might be like this, Traverse City whiskey. Another great one that was gifted to me from my cousin on the holiday break was Wiggle whiskey. I don't know
not heard of that one.
How familiar you are from that, but that's from the Pittsburgh whiskey company, and I might be getting that wrong, but maybe the next time I'm on, I'll bring a bottle.
The old
of
Yinzer liquor.
Yeah, it's it's pretty phenomenal. But this is definitely going to open it up, and I'm going to look for a little bit more unique, which is what I think you were going after, Nate, as what on the shelf is unique to that certain state and or territory.
I try everything. I might actually. I'll probably hit a liquor store in Boston. But I'm gonna head there this weekend. I was gonna say I'm gonna try to find a cigar shop too. The itinerary is jam packed. I'm learning more each day that Liz has. Like we fly in Saturday morning. We have dinner reservations on Saturday.
Where are you heading? I'm sorry.
Boston.
Boston. Okay, cool.
Boston for a wedding. It's a family friend of Liz's, and it's funny because so we're getting picked up by the groom, which is the family friend, and then we have dinner reservations. Liz and I do right there on the water in Salem, Massachusetts, I guess, or in that area. And then I found out that we also have lunch the day of the wedding. Why is Bentley in camo? It's not camo. You should see this jacket.
Nice.
I should have Kyle take a picture of that.
Look at this, man.
Where's Nook at?
Don't start that on fire with the heater.
You see that? Does that get it?
I don't know if it's HD enough to
Oh, yeah.
capture that majestic jacket.
You got the swag going up in here.
It's an Oriental inspired. Am I allowed to say that? I mean,
You're allowed to say whatever you want on this. It's up to everyone out there to judge you. I'm not going to.
It's an Oriental inspired jacket designer. So we won't mention names, but it's on the Monte Cristo level. We'll say that. We'll say
It's
that.
on a small batch level.
Small batch.
Nook wants me to send him a pic, so I'll have to send you a pic, Nook, or after the podcast.
Up your game, Nook. Up your game, baby.
Come on.
I'm just kidding. He knows it's all
Rep
love.
fight.
Swaggy
Love you,
swag.
man.
We're going to set up a cage match at the next Smoking 10 event, maybe next year. Just 2 reps enter, 1 rep leaves.
My money. Well, if it's between Nook and Josh, I think my money's on Nook. He's got the leverage.
Shots fired.
He's shorter.
And he's much more feistier. Josh is just such a nice guy.
I'll hug him,
Yeah,
man.
but
I'll
love
hug
or
him.
not a
The nice
fighter.
guys have
I'll
the
hug him.
rage inside
All
of them.
right.
Scrappy.
We are derailing quickly here. All right, Facebook,
Love you,
we're
Nook.
about to start Beyond the BS Part 2 of the podcast here, so stay tuned right now. Share it, like it, please, and join the community page as well, Bourbon and BS community page. Definitely check that out because there's a lot of continuing conversation, a lot of sharing of the bourbons you're drinking, the whiskeys, the cigars, life topics, everything you guys want to talk about. It's a great community. We're at, I think, 640 or so members within the first couple months, so we really appreciate that. Swag off at the 10 event. That's amazing. Nate, are you ready to start this?
Bring it strong.
Welcome back to Bourbon and BS Podcast. This is Beyond the BS, episode 102. We had a great Part 1. I hope you guys have a chance to check that out. We had a great whiskey that was donated from Jerry Dezenski. It's Traverse City Whiskey Company, XXX Straight Bourbon. I'm trying to get the whole name on there. But yeah, so fantastic whiskey. We reviewed that in the first part, and then also we are honored to have Josh Bentley on. We had a new cigar. I'm still smoking it, the H. Upmann Herman's Batch, the Banker, which is going to be hitting cigar shops here in the near future. Shipping soon. You guys have not seen it yet, but it's definitely listen to part 1 if you guys haven't already, and check out what we had to say about that as well. So I want to thank Josh for being here and having Altidus, his company, and Josh's efforts to sponsor the podcast. It's always great having you in the garage, and it's also great having that support from such a great company and helping us do what we're doing here and getting a lot of these reviews out, and then also the great life topic conversation, which is what we're getting into right now. Yeah. Also, thank you, Tinderbox at Easton. Check us out, Tinderbox at Easton. So we don't have the Herman's batch, like I mentioned. It's not shipping yet, so we're going to do 15% off the H. Upmann Nicaragua from AJ Fernandez, and that's going to be 15% off through this week up until the next podcast next Wednesday. And we are looking forward to sharing that with you. If you're in the Columbus area, please come in, grab it at that deal. Or if you're elsewhere and you can't make it into Columbus in the next week, we will ship you at the minimum of 5 cigars, 15% off, but as many as you want. We can send you a box for that amount, and we will get you that as well as soon as we can. So message us, call us, whatever. Also, BS Cigar Company, thank you very much for the support, and I'm looking forward to smoking a BS Silver. Maybe tonight. Josh has brought a lot of goodies. He's got some treats for us, so I probably won't get to a BS tonight, honestly, with you being here. So, which is fine.
You're welcome.
There's always tomorrow.
Candyman is here.
Candyman's here. There's always more BS out there. Also have Shannon Chapman, who we have on this week. He's the guest of honor, and earlier this week I shared his video that he made and someone put together for you at one church with your story, and we're going to get into that just momentarily. I also want to encourage everyone to share, review this podcast and all the feeds and on audio, iTunes, Spotify, Overcast, Luminary, whatever else is out there. There's a lot of them, but I'm pretty sure we shared most of them just through the program we use. And also, if you guys want to help support us, we have a lot of community support. We have a Bourbon and BS community page as well on Facebook. 600 plus members so far in the first couple months, and I'm hoping that continues to grow because I'm loving the community vibe and everyone sharing, having conversations, learning from each other, what they're drinking, smoking, what they're going through, all of that. I mean, it's the podcast basically in Facebook page form and group page form, which is unique. It's not just your everyday. Nothing wrong with them. I'm a part of a lot of them. I share to a lot of them, learn a lot from a lot of them, the cigar pages and the whiskey pages, but this is one that kind of ties everything together in life in general. So appreciate everyone supporting. We have a Patreon page, patreon.com, Bourbon and BS Podcast. You guys can actually contribute monthly as small or large as you want, but that helps us be self-sustaining. So for the patrons that are a part of it, we are working on getting some thank you gifts, and anyone that's going to be involved in the future, we're going to have that available. But don't wait. Anyone that gets on that list and is contributing, when I finalize some of this merchandise, you will get your thank you gifts for being a part of it from the beginning. So thank you, everyone, on that very much. It means a lot to me personally, and it also means a lot to doing this podcast.
Yeah, the community page is awesome because me and my wife just went on vacation down in New Orleans, and I threw out, say, hey, what's some good spots to hit up, and everybody just lit it up, man. So thank you for that. That helped out a lot. Checked out a lot of cool places.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tonight's topic, share your growth. For those of you that had a chance to check out some of the info and some of the stuff that we put out on our different social media feeds, Shannon put together that video, and this is one that there's a lot that I think I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm actually excited about it because watching that video, I've known Shannon for several years now.
Yeah, good 5, 6, 7.
5, 6, 7 years. Yeah. Most of the interactions through the cigars, not just in the shop, but smoking cigars and hanging out a bit. But it's one of those things that you don't really know everyone's story, even if you've known them for years. And so when Shannon came around, we had Sean Wilkinson on several episodes ago, and he shared his story, and it was, again, a very powerful podcast. And tonight I'm excited because it's in a different way, but Shannon, just like everyone's got a story.
Absolutely.
And having you watching that video, Josh, you've seen the video, and I know you were excited. You definitely conveyed that to me, that you were like, yeah, I'm in for this podcast. The travel has worked out. My availability is there. I'm making it work because you want to have a part of this conversation. But the whole thing is, and I'll give a quick kind of summary of what I took from this 6-minute video, is that Shannon at a younger age, you went through some ups and downs, and you even told me that this is like a highlight reel if you can have it, low light reel, if you
Right.
will, turns into a highlight reel, because it's interesting watching this video. You talk about what happened at a young age with your family life and what you went through. And spoiler alert, to a point, it's something that, you know, as the video goes on, the reason we're calling this Share Your Growth, it's not just about, we were looking at, like, you know, find your self-worth and other topic taglines like that, which I think is all included in this kind of a story that you're going to share. But it's one of those things that now you've got kind of gone full circle. The lessons you've learned, you're how old?
44.
You're 44 years old. You have, you know, worked in a career for a long time in your adult life. After you went through all this stuff, you've had an opportunity now where you have been able to share what you've learned, share what you've been through with many people, but one in particular in that video, which was a young boy, not even young man. I mean, he's how old?
In the video, he was 8 at the time.
8 years old, and you create a bond with this 8-year-old. Almost like I equated it to like that whole Big Brother, Big Sister type program.
You're right.
That's what I was thinking. But I'll digress to that, where it's something that I'm watching this video, and it's powerful just watching a 6-minute video. It's a well-done video, which helps. You know, there's little dramatic effects, black and white, most of it. And I can appreciate the Hollywood side of it because it was really well done. But the story there is really interesting. So I'll kind of just point it to you, is that start at that beginning part of that video. And I know you have a letter that you wrote in 6th grade?
Yeah, 6th grade.
6th grade. So, I mean, like, walk me through kind of the beginning of where we're at on this. Like, kind of take people back to a point at the beginning of how you go from point A, you know, as a young boy, young man, and then transition to your 40s and kind of where does it all start?
Yeah, so I'll preface this with, so if you hear me talking about my wife, we have the same name. My wife's name is Shannon, so.
Which is one of the first memories I have of meeting you, like, because you came in together and you're like, this Shannon is my wife, Shannon.
Right.
Cool.
So if you hear that, I'm not talking in the first person or whatever. So about 6th grade, I was growing up. Everything seemed cool and kosher, nothing crazy. And then the people always came to my house, I thought, as an aunt and uncle, turned out to be my actual mom and dad. And they interacted all the time, and I didn't think anything of it. Well, one day, they showed up with a new baby, a baby girl. They're like, "This is your sister." Like, how the hell is this possible? Like, it didn't make any sense in my young mind. And come to find out that my grandparents had taken custody of me maybe by when I was a year old.
So you don't have any memory of it?
I have no memory of that. So, like, through circumstances, my actual parents were very young. I think my mom was 16 when she had me.
Okay.
My dad was 17 going on 18, and he was going off into the Navy. So I guess my grandparents stepped in, but I didn't know any of this. Nobody talked about it, and we still didn't even talk about it to that day up until 4 years ago.
So you knew your grandparents as your parents?
Absolutely. I still call them mom and dad to this day, you know. So they raised me, and they already raised 5 kids before me, and they were all out of the house. They had
Is it your mom's side or dad's side? Excuse me.
Dad's side.
Okay.
And they had a 6th child, but he passed away at birth, not long after birth of pneumonia, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So they already had a family, raised it, and they stepped in and took me, and they were in their 40s when they took me in. So I didn't learn a lot of this until after all these conversations started really happening. There's a whole nother little bit of piece in there that I'll keep private because it's pretty heavy.
Share what you feel comfortable with, and I appreciate it.
And I'll preface it with, I love my grandparents and my parents. There's nothing bad in this story. It's just, for the longest time, nobody wanted to talk about it. And that was the hardest part, always wondering, like, why? Why was I?
After you figured it out.
When I found out in 6th grade, like, it messed me up so much. Like, this letter here, I wrote in 6th grade after I found this out. I wrote it to my teacher as we had some kind of project to write. So I wrote down, like, everything I was thinking and feeling in this letter. And I I didn't know this at the time, but she gave this to my grandparents after I wrote it. And my grandpa kept this in his billfold. So this is 6th grade. I don't know how old you were in 6th grade.
Was it 12?
Maybe
Did you
somewhere
say
in
12?
there.
11, 12.
Yeah, 11, 12. I didn't get this letter till 4 years ago. He's had it in his billfold since. And, you know, my grandparents are up there in their age. They're in their 80s now.
Still living, both of them.
Yeah, still living.
Okay.
Awesome.
And I was over at the house in, I guess, 2016. And we're just sitting there talking, whatever. And he gets his billfold out, and he's like, "Do you remember writing this?" I about fell over. Like,
did you remember?
I remember writing this, but I haven't seen it since the 6th grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's been crazy.
Wow.
And I read it, and I immediately just like, it took me back to memories and things I didn't want to think about anymore. You know what I mean?
Had you blocked them out? Is that what you mean?
Oh, yeah. Like, from that moment, my life had changed. From my thought process to how I viewed people, how I viewed, like, opening my heart to people. Like, I didn't trust anybody at that point. It was a game changer, put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in at any age, but I mean, shit, you're basically going into adolescence right then.
So like it made me always think of like, well, shit, what was wrong with me? Like, what's so good about her that you, like, here I am, I'm your son.
Yeah.
And then a few years after that, they had another baby, another boy.
So your parents, your biological parents, still together, like at that time?
Not at that time, yes.
At that time?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
And so then they had another kid, which is son. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, damn, like, what happened in that time frame when I was born to not want to take me back, or like if you got back on your feet or whatever it was, to take me back in and go live this life. And from that point on, I was just like, all right, so I'm screwed up. There's something wrong with me. And that's how I kind of viewed myself moving forward.
Yeah.
And in that process, I hardened my heart. I love people.
You say you hardened your heart?
Hardened my heart.
Okay.
Like, I mean, Sean can tell you, I love people. I love interacting with people.
Ever since I've known you, I mean, you've been just a super nice and and again, like, generous person, and, you know, always open. Seem very like, again, knowing your wife, meeting your wife is like dude's just a nice dude.
Yeah, like there's always this undertone. So it gave me like this abandonment issue. So any relationship I got into, like dating, I would really like the person or love them or whatever it is, but it would get to the point where it felt too comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm the one hitting the eject button.
What age are you talking about here?
Teens,
high school,
all the way up until my 30s. Like in the beginning, coming into my 30s.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was just a crazy feeling that, like, I'd be your best friend, but I wouldn't trust you for nothing. Like, I would always keep you right here.
Who did you trust at that time? Like your grandparents? Or was there a trust issue there?
Yes.
Because they had been hiding the truth from you. Basically.
Hiding the truth, and then I always felt like there was I don't want to say a wall, but we never spoke. Like, my life growing up in that time frame is they lived upstairs, I lived downstairs, and it was like interaction. If I saw you, hey, there's no I love you, hey boy, how was your day today? Like, what's going on? No hugs. It was just a very.
This was after the 6th grade.
Yeah.
Okay, so things changed.
Well, I don't remember anything like even before then, like the love yous or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Like when I got into middle school and I start really making friends, and I had a million friends. Like I could make a friend, like no problem. Yeah. But I'd start going to their houses, and we'd walk in, and they'd be like, "Oh, Timmy, hey, how was your day?" And a hug, and I'm sitting back like, "Does this shit really happen?" I thought this was only in shows and the Cosbys and all that, all that kind of stuff. So it was from middle school on, really started to ingrain the craziness in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I was a standout baseball player, and I loved baseball, but don't know if it's because my grandparents were from an old school of thinking, like that's just a thing you do. You can't take it anywhere. Like you need a 9 to 5 and clock in, clock out. That's how they viewed the world.
What'd your grandfather do?
He worked for
by trade.
He worked for Pepsi for 35 years. Retired from there.
So there's the mentality, right?
Yeah,
he was a different generation.
He's from Kentucky, of the hills of Kentucky. Just a hard-working, go out, get it done. Don't question it, just do it.
You talk about the abandonment issues, which is, I mean, it's a scary thing. I mean, people that get their heart broken, the people that, in just everyday life, someone like just pulls the rug out from underneath you. Obviously, your situation to me is just one of those that, it's when you talk about it, I'm thinking like 12 years old. Again, you're going through basically puberty at that point, so your hormones are all over the board. You don't even know who you are. If you have a stable family,
right.
Like no one knows who they are at 12, 13, 14 years old. They think they do, and it's by the time you're 15, you clearly can run the household.
Right.
Even if you have like the loving, if you will, like the people that you go over, like you're like Timmy, like hugs and all that stuff. By the time you hit teenage years, you're just better.
Right.
So you didn't even get a chance to get to the point of you knew better. You're just like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I didn't know who I was. I didn't have an identity, I guess. So I was searching for something.
Well, your years leading up to that, clearly you thought everything was the way things were, and then it was just in a matter of an instant. I'm curious, like, did they came over to the house? You thought they were aunt and uncle, like your first 10, 11 years?
They had 5 other sons.
Yeah.
So they're always coming to the house, hanging out, doing stuff, interacting.
So you knew your biological parents before this happened?
Basically, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
But there was no conversation of like, this is what's going on. We just want to get ahead of the curve. There was no ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
It was, all right, here we go. Here's your new chapter. Like it or not, here's the new chapter.
What was the relationship like from ages 12 to call it 21?
I hung out with them. Like, they would come over and I'd go stay with them and do things, but it never felt, I don't say it never felt right. It was just always the what ifs, like what the hell is going on? Like, I never got comfortable with it.
No.
I never called them mom and dad. It was always by their first names.
Did you still call your grandparents mom and dad? You said
yeah, to this day.
To this day.
Yeah. That's all I know is a mom and dad at that point. So I can never make that full switch over. And it was just odd. It was just an odd feeling, And then I'd see, like, me and my sister we had a really good relationship.
This is the baby sister.
Yeah, we got close, but I always felt like the outsider when I went over there. Like,
yeah,
okay, you kept her and my brother, but here I am. Like, and I think they might have felt a little awkward too.
Yeah,
I think there was like between everybody there was a slight awkwardness, and nobody knew how to handle it. So the best way to handle it was not talk about it.
There's a lot of families that do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of families that, it's like if something is awkward, whatever, you don't ask questions, or you're
right.
raised to think that, this is just the way things are. I'm not going to interject too much, but that was, I think I've shared it before to people. I think I've shared it on the podcast before, but it's something that there was someone in my family that we didn't really talk about, and I don't want to give, air my families without talking to them about it, because I don't know if I have actually shared details, but someone in my family had taken their own life, and it was something that growing up, it was just kind of like, oh no, they died before you were born, and it was like, oh, okay,
right.
It was one of those things that I didn't find out until I was doing a family tree in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it wasn't a fluff course. It was, it's like it's sociology course. So some people might think that's a fluff major, but that was my major. Anyways, I was doing a family tree, and I was like, whatever happened to, like, how did they die? Because that was part of it. How did people pass?
Where's this person
doing
at?
the lineage and all that stuff. And I was told at like 19, 20 years old. It was just one of those things. It's like, oh, like, how is
Yeah.
this not something that someone talked about? But it was that same strategy as a family. It's like, we're not going to muddy the waters of anyone that's raised in this family. They're just not with us. They died
Right.
before you're born, and as a kid, you're just like, oh yeah, so and so died before I was born. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Period. No questions. Just that's it.
Right.
So your story, though, like in the video and what we kind of talked about, it got to the point where you were talking about some of the lows.
Right.
What age was this?
So this would have been freshman year.
A couple years later.
Yeah, I got into high school, and like I said, I fit in with everybody. I didn't run with cliques. I was cool with all the other cliques. I was just cool with everybody, and
You're an easygoing.
yeah,
dude.
I'm a laid back dude. I don't get ruffled up.
I feel like you were like this back in
yeah,
high school.
but I noticed like I had such abandonment and kind of issues that I would make friends, but I would do things to. I'd never want to make you mad because I didn't want you to leave me as my friend. So it'd be extra nice or extra accommodating, or you
Yeah.
know, if you didn't have $10, I'd give you $12, like stuff like that. And I would go broke doing it,
Yeah.
but it made me feel good to make you feel good because I don't want you feeling like what I felt. It's kind of things,
I think that part's probably justifying. It was more the first.
right?
You didn't want to let anyone down.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
you never want to let anybody down because I was so crushed by my letdown that I don't want you to feel that. So I kind of went through that phase, and there was these kids that moved in behind us. They were kind of like some hillbilly dudes that had guns. We'd go out into the woods and shoot guns, and we were out one night or one evening shooting in the woods, and it got late. Everybody's heading home, and we had like a .22 rifle, and he had this little .380 pistol, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're breaking up, heading out. He's like, man, just take that home, and I'll get it back from you tomorrow, whatever. Okay, whatever. So I went home that night, and, I had a lot of depression going on, but I was sitting in my room that night, man, and, like, all the thoughts start coming, and, like, why this? Why that? Why am I not this? Well, why can't I be like the rest of these families and all this other crap? And I'm sitting there, and I got this gun in my hand. Like, I'm ready to just end it.
14, 15 years old.
Yeah, freshman in high school. I'm sitting in that room, and I'm crying my eyes out, like, why me? Like, what did I do so wrong that I can't be loved or whatever it is? I'm going through this whole thing and sitting on the edge of my bed, and I don't know, man, just this great calm just came over me, and I stopped crying, and, like, I told it in the video. If you see the video, like in this room, you see all this smoke rolling around. Like, everything came to a
best ventilated garage. I get it.
Everything just came to a standstill. Like time had almost stopped. It was the wildest feeling. I remember I just stopped crying, and this feeling came over me. I couldn't describe it at the time. I remember I just put the gun under the bed, and I laid back, and I remember laying there, and I just laid there, and I was like, I would never let anybody hurt me again, ever. And that was like the beginning of this wild stage that I came into. Like, when I had a hardened heart, I put a steel box around it at this point.
Right.
And nobody was getting in. So, yeah. Like, I was at the edge of just ending it. Thank God I didn't.
Yeah. No,
So-
absolutely.
And that was the beginning stages of me, I guess, lashing out. I hooked up with this crew of guys. They didn't go to my school. And we became like these wild dudes in Westerville, like fighting. Like, you name it, we did it. We were always in trouble with the police and in the papers, and it got crazy.
So you didn't completely heal. You just basically started rebelling, and
Yeah,
you found
I
a
was
new
la- I was-
purpose, which was to.
I
be
went
a pain
I
in the
went
ass.
from hurting to lashing out.
Yeah.
100%. So when you hear somebody say, I got a chip on my shoulder, bro, I had a cinder block.
Yeah.
Like, and I was ready to use it on you.
So how long did that go? I mean, it didn't go away. You said you went into your 30s.
Yeah, so I had this wild phase of running around with these guys and getting into stuff. I mean, it got so bad where Westerville police had put an undercover cop with us trying to like take us down. It got wild.
Yeah.
And that was probably from my sophomore year, kind of after high school, and in my beginning of my 20s, I kind of phased out of being wild and running the streets into the party mode. And that's when, drugs, all the wildness, partying, clubs, you name it, it was there.
It's exactly what you need when you're going through all this.
Absolutely. I never...
I mean, that's
I partied
tough.
to forget was what I did. I wasn't like an addict. I never got anything I was hooked to. I was mostly like drinking and popping pills and stuff like that, smoking weed, whatever. Nothing crazy hard, but yeah, it was there.
It's funny, like so Bob, not funny, like haha funny, but so Bobby Hirschman is listening, and he's from Philly. He's been a loyal listener and supporter of the Bourbon and BS community, and when I said ask any questions for Shannon, I mean Bobby made a statement here, and I think that it's something that's really one of the reasons that we were talking about having you on. You wanted to be on the show, and one of the reasons I really liked it. Not only was I curious in what I can learn from this, but Bobby says too busy listening and growing up in a huge city, seen lots of what he went through and always will go through, and it's a valid point. I mean, that's the reason that I want to have someone like you on this to share your story, because Bobby's out there and he's saying I've heard these types of stories, and that's the scary part. That's the unfortunate part, not only for you personally, but when there's 7 billion people in the world or whatever the number is now, it doesn't matter if you grow up in a big city, a small town, a suburb, whatever. This shit's happening all the time.
Oh, 100%. And like Bobby, we always feel like when we're in this position, we're the only ones going through it. Like, you can't relate. You don't know shit. You haven't been through it. And you keep that locked inside of you, and that's like a driving force for survival.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing. I was trying to survive whatever I was going through, whatever I was in. If I was out scrapping in the street, doing a bunch of other wild stuff I shouldn't have been into. Like, I was just surviving my mental state.
So Shannon, I want to ask. I mean, so in that state, what was resonating in your mind? Like, what was it? Was it abandonment? Like, what was in the back of your mind, and you just, it was this hump that you couldn't get over? I mean, what was it in your? You shared what led you to that point, but like, what was it that you were you trying to find fulfillment?
Yeah, so when I think back, I even thought about it in those times when I'd be around, say, like, this is our crew, we're hanging out, having a good time, we're out at a bar, sipping on whiskey, whatever we're doing, I'm always like, damn, do I really belong here with all these guys? Like, am I good enough to hang in this circle? What
good enough to hang in that circle?
Like, say we were hanging out, like, what value do I have to bring to this whole little? That's how I always thought. I always thought that, like, why am I here? Like, what can I bring to this? And I always thought it's never good enough. Like, so I'd always, I don't know. That was the driving force. Like, how do I become good enough?
That was a cinder block you were talking about on your shoulder.
So that's when I would lash out, and I was never the guy to go out, start fights, and do this, but I was always ready just to. Me getting punched in the face made me feel something. That's exactly how I put it.
Oh, you're going to feel something.
Yeah, but it made me feel alive. Like, okay,
I get it.
Here's my purpose. Either I get beat down, left in the gutter, I didn't care. It was just something that made me feel alive.
And I don't mean to be make trivial of this or anything like that. Maybe people listening are going to think that I am, but one of my favorite books and also movies is Fight Club.
Oh yeah,
and that was, I think, still one. Like, I think it's a great. It's my top 3 movies of all time.
Great
right?
movie.
Came came to me when I was switching over to be a sociology major as well. And it's something that, like, watching that and listening to you, this is what's coming. And when you said that, it's not just because, like, oh, you hit me in the ear. You know, that part of the movie. You know, I'm sure you've seen it, which I think is a great scene. That was actually ad-libbed, by the way, is I guess that, you know, he didn't know that he was going to get hit in the ear. Edward Norton.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Brad Pitt and the director was like, yeah, I'm going to hit him in the ear. And then that, or no, like the vice versa. Anyways, it was a great scene. And that was part of it, is that they started feeling alive. And the whole point of that movie, and in the book, it was a book before a movie, is the rejection. You keep talking about...
That's a good word, rejection.
You keep talking about abandonment. And I'm not going to put words in your mouth or say I know your story, because I'm learning a lot right now. But some of the things that I think a lot of people will resonate with and can relate to... that, you know, Bobby said that, Nooks out there, I get this, you're something, brother. It's something that it's not always the extremes like that you went through, and I want to dive back into that a little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's rejection.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest word right there, is rejection.
And no one wants to admit that. Even after everything you've been through, you talk about abandonment, because that is the core of it. But when you talk about abandonment, it's not just like, oh, I'm by myself and all that. You said it earlier, and you said it in the video that we shared, and I hope you guys check it out, especially if you're interested in the story. But it's the rejection, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
No matter what the reasons are, no matter what happened leading up to that, but it's the feeling of being rejected. No one likes in any way.
No.
You interview for a job and you don't get it, and you're like, what?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, why?
You didn't see
killed
my
it.
resume? What?
Yeah, like, you hired someone over me?
Yeah.
You get like, someone says, you know, it's not you, it's me. And you're like, clearly it's me. I mean, that's the age-old thing. It's like, it's not you, it's me. It's like, bullshit. It's absolutely me, because you're the one breaking up with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a rejection there that I think that most can relate to, is that you don't know. There's the unknown factor. This is just the way life is unfolding, and you have no control over it.
That's like when going back to like all those relationships I was in. I would reject you before you would reject me. I didn't want to deal with those emotions anymore. So if we were comfortable having a good time, and I would get to a point, it always happened. We'd get to a point, I'm like, this shit is running too smooth. I'm not letting you get out on me. I'm getting out on you. So I'll do something stupid, cheat, do something stupid, and like, see you.
I'm going to reject you before you can reject me.
Absolutely.
I'm going to harp that. I'm like, you know, I'm going to.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
I think like, this is the
driving word. Yeah, absolutely.
Rejection sucks, and in the magnitude that happened in your life. I want to ask, because this is I don't know, Josh. The reason I really am happy that Josh was able to be a part of this podcast tonight, this episode. If I'm not mistaken, are you still working with kids in the church?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, something that Josh is involved with, and
Nice.
I don't want to go. I mean, you guys take it wherever you want, but I'm not going to get down the religious route 100%. You guys can, you know, see what kind of influence that has on you. But, you know, something that I know of Josh all through the cigar industry, but knowing him as a person and who he is and what he does, he's a family man, and he works with kids. Rejection is something that, you know, happens at a young age. It happens at an older age, and no one deals well with it. I do want to ask, though, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead of the story. We might go a little all over the place here, but
no, that's fine.
When you started really thinking clearer, I'm curious, when you talked about, you know, your mom, your biological mother and father, 16, 17 years old, 18 years old, and they had you. I don't know if you've had conversations with them since, but reflecting, when I'm looking at that, from the outside looking in, and then years later, you're 12, had a baby sister, so 12 years later, now all of a sudden they are 30?
Yeah, they're in their 30s, yeah.
At that time? You were 12.
I would think so, yeah.
You were 12, baby
I've never
sister.
done the timeline, but yeah.
Yeah, so you're 30 years old, and it's one of those things that I'm looking at, and I'm not defending them. I'm not, like, justifying. I'm just thinking, you know, out loud here, is that at that age, they the reason that they did it, they kept you in the family by going to the grandparents.
That was a
and maybe they had this conversation with you. It's not going to make you feel any better, at that time, especially.
I'll just say, like, before we jump ahead, that now that I understand everything, when I get to look back now, I can see the grace that happened with me going to my grandparents and not with them. And, like, when you're able to step back and see the perspective of the whole story, you're like, okay, I get it. It sucked at the time because I didn't know. But now it's built something in me where I can pass it on and stop young kids or young men in their teens in the same situation. Be like, bro, it's not you, man. It was never about you. Like, that's all I ever wanted to say. It was never about you. And I never got that. I always thought it was about me.
Right.
Well, I think that's hindsight, right?
Absolutely, hindsight.
That's one of those things you look back and I was kind of, again, not making light of it, but it's like the it's not you, it's me thing, and you hear that mostly in like relationships. But I mean, that's what I was looking at it as is a very much more powerful and impactful way of, at the time, at that age. And I don't know your parents, your biological parents. I don't know your grandparents who you call your parents.
Yeah.
I don't know any of those people, but it's one of those things that's their survival. You keep bringing that up. It's a survival part of it. And it's a terrible situation, but I look at it, it was like at that point, it had to be, and I'm hoping that's the full circle. When you're working with a young man you're working with on a regular basis, I'm going to assume, and I got to be honest, we haven't talked about this, so I might be way off.
Okay.
But that might be one of the resounding things that you say is that it's not you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the outside factors, the other people. For your situation, that you were unfortunately a product of the situation at hand. You're a product of people in your life, especially at a young age. You have no rights. You have no ability to go elsewhere. Like, yeah, you can run away, but like you're fucked because you're 12 years old and you can't get a job. You know what I mean? You will starve to death or you'll be homeless. And it's one of those things that it's like, again, that was maybe at the time maybe the best thing they could do because they weren't going to be able to raise you.
Yes.
The alternative is to obviously give you up for adoption, is to do something else, whatever you want to do. But it's like I'm looking at this situation and I'm thinking maybe they did what they thought was best at the time.
Right.
But what they didn't do, and this is something this is a recurring theme on this show. Communication. You're absolutely right, Shannon. You can't leave people in the dark.
No.
Because it fucks with you.
So, and I want to interject here real quick.
Absolutely, please.
I mean, you have the naivete of a child, right? And a child's mind. And you're a child when this is all going down, and you don't understand it. And the only thing that's resounding in your mind is this abandonment, right? That's what just keeps replaying in your head, right? Rejection, because you don't have that 30,000-foot view, right? you don't have that eagle eye that is looking down at everything, because again, you're a kid, right?
Right.
And so that's what resonates with you, and that's what resonated. But then going back to what we were talking about and what you brought up, Steve, in the communication piece, where you have your biological parents giving you to your grandparents thinking, oh, hey, we want a better life for Shannon, right? And this is it. Well, then your grandparents like, hey, we don't know how to talk about this, right?
Right.
And I find that generation, in my little bit of wisdom that I've gained from life, that generation was not. They were not communicators.
Absolutely not.
and so
spot on.
That was a generation.
How old are your
of
grandparents that you?
They're in their 80s. They're in their 80s.
Spot on.
So I mean, it was kind of a let's sweep it under the rug thing, and let's kind of see how this plays out, right? And then what occurred is and what I gathered from your story, and I mean this is a great story, and Shannon, I really, I want to say, like, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing your story. I know it's helped many people from the video, and the testimony that you put out, and you're still helping people at this point, and tipping my hat to you for what it's worth. I mean, that's amazing, and I'm so glad we get to talk about it. But I can't imagine what you went through at that time, and what you're sharing with us. So, with that rejection, with that feel of abandonment, where did you recognize, or at what point did you recognize, like, hey, this isn't me. It wasn't me. Is that something that you're still struggling with?
No, I've come to grips with all that now. So it went through my 20s. I met my wife when I was turning 30, and she was like my saving grace of
Interesting
everything.
that you put that on the timeline, because you said you carried this until your late 20s into your 30s.
So I was out partying. I was running with dudes that own clubs here in Columbus. Like, I could go anywhere. I was working in strip clubs. I was living this life that I could do what I want in the city and go and do things and have all the fun.
You're Billy Badass right there, man.
Yeah, a boy would want to do. I had it at my fingertips. I knew all the right people, and I could go here and there and do whatever. But there was always that little inside, like, are you sure you're allowed in there? Like, stupid stuff like that.
It's amazing what you can do when you keep everyone at an arm's length.
Exactly.
Temporarily.
My always saying to myself is like, I like to know the man. I don't want to be the man. I just got to know the man, and that'll get me wherever I need to go. And that's how it worked out. Like, I always got in with all these people that own this and that, and always had a great time, but I could just walk away and not suffer too many of the crazy consequences that came with it.
Again, when you keep people at an arm's length, when you're in control. And again, I mean, I'm not trying to dial down or diagnose anything, but it's one of those things that when you're in control, when you have those issues, when you,
that was the only thing I could control.
Exactly right. So you've circled around it a bit, but it's like the rejection, the abandonment, and all that stuff. When it's really interesting, because you talk about how, and I've known a lot of people. I've had my phases. Yeah. A little bit, not to that volume, but it's one of those things where if you are dealing with that abandonment, the rejection issues and stuff like that, you're not coping, but the way you resolve it is, I don't need you. I can walk away.
Right.
So you're so, in a minor way, you're very little. There's a little investment there. So you're enjoying it and all that stuff. You know what I mean? But the power there comes from,
I can walk away.
I don't need this.
Yeah. I'm here to party. I'll partake in your goodies, but see you. I go back home, and
that's something that people in any relationship, I'm not talking about like necessarily romantic or anything else, but I mean the power in any interaction, the power in any relationship typically goes to the person, and it's sad. But the person that cares less.
Right. That
has less invested, that they can walk away at any point. That is an age-old thing in business and personal relationships and everything, that as soon as you can be the person that has less invested, you have more power.
Like,
the other person is coming to you. The other party, like what you're talking about, they're coming to you. They want you in the club. They want you to be there because you know people and all that stuff.
Right.
And you can walk away at any point and go to another club.
Right. Absolutely. Like, even
it's
in a
short
relationship,
term, but it's power.
In like a relationship, like, I would know, oh yeah, she likes me, she's into me, and I can manipulate that to any way I wanted it, and it wouldn't hurt me. So like, she's like, why are you doing this? Because I can. Like, I wouldn't say that, but because I'm not ready to give you 100%. You'll get 60, 70.
And why do you think that is? Why were you not ready?
because I wasn't going to give you the power to reject me.
Exactly. Bingo.
Yeah, that's 100% the reason.
You give up the power when you're in that mindset, when you don't give yourself fully to, I'm not trying to take it to relationships, but
anything.
Family, business. It's so scary. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, again, take away from your story, but I look at this as this is a life lesson. This is how you live your life. You go 100%. You commit 100%. You have the opportunity to get rejected, to be hurt.
Yes.
And
yes.
That is a shitty feeling.
Yes. And I avoided it at all costs.
You built up a brick wall.
Yeah.
I mean, in any relationship, you put that brick wall up because, hey, I'm not getting hurt.
Right. Like, I would feel, as soon as I would think that anything was going to hurt me, I'm pulling the eject button. I'm out.
You can walk away anytime.
Yeah.
So, you're in control. But you said that you met your now wife.
Yep.
Also named Shannon, which
Yeah.
you had to get over that. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Let's get light for a second here.
It was kind of
cool. You meet a girl named Shannon. Your name's Shannon. You're like, well, this won't work.
It was kind of cool that it was. It was
This is
actually
how it works.
It was a blind date. One of my best friends, Aaron, and his wife was like her best friend, and they thought it'd be kind of cool, like, oh, Shannon, blah blah blah. So we met up on this little date, and they said to her like a week before, like, hey, I know a guy named Shannon. I want you to meet. She's like, I'm not meeting another dude with the name Shannon.
That's like a cruel trick, right? Like, no, you guys are going to hit it off. Yeah, but are you fucking with me right now?
Right.
Like, Shannon and Shannon?
So they were like,
this can't
all right,
happen.
Like, we got to get them together. So we did this, I think it was a birthday we went to. And I knew she was coming to the house to go with us. She didn't know I was there.
Perfect.
So she walked in and she looked and she's like, oh, shit, this must be Shannon. But there was this.
You don't look like a Shannon.
Nah. I don't even know how. I asked my biological mom, I'm like, why do you name me Shannon? Because my other two siblings have normal names. But
it's a normal name, but what'd they say?
Yeah.
I got to ask.
There was no real whatever to it. There's no cool backstory, but.
It's a great name.
Yeah, I love it. Through school, I kind of was mad about it because everybody was like, oh, Shannon, that's a girl's name. I know more dudes named Shannon than I know girls. So
I don't share that, but I think that's why you got bigger.
Yeah, put on some pounds.
There's two chips on your shoulder growing up. One we've talked about, which is serious. The other is a little lighter, which is you were named Shannon. You're like, well, I gotta be able to beat anyone up because they're gonna make fun of my name. I gotta beat them up. Am I wrong? Is there was a little bit of that?
No, I never thought that.
No,
I never thought
Good
that about
for you. I absolutely would have thought that. I'm like,
I actually
Shannon,
took a girl.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I took a girl to her junior prom. Her name was Shannon, so that was like my first time ever doing the Shannon thing.
There's a trend here.
Right. So I met her, and it was instant, man. I as soon as she walked in the door, I'd never felt the way I felt about anybody in my life.
Really?
So this was in my 30s. I'm coming out of the party phase. I'm trying to figure myself, but I still don't know what to do or how to go about it. And this was like a truly godsend thing that, all right, you come through this wild stuff. I'm going to send somebody to you to really bring you full circle. And from the night we met into this day, we're together almost 14 years. We'll be married 10 years. This year, we've never been apart, broken up, separated, anything.
Awesome.
You need to bring her around more, by the way.
Man.
No, I love it, man. She's my godson.
Going into this, we got Doug Ruffalo, who's been tuning in. He's a friend, and he's also, according to the Facebook page, he's a top fan, and I appreciate the continued support. He's listening into this part, and I know he enjoys it. Big cigar and bourbon guy as well, but he says there's no training on how to be a parent. I took lessons from my parents, and this is going back to what we were talking about earlier. I took lessons from my parents on how to do things and how not to do things. I try hard not to resent some of the things they did, like the heavy-handed corporal punishment, and handle things different with my kids. My parents only knew what they saw and were taught by example. I try to be better. There's a lot in that statement. He also has commented with your recent story here. I was rejected by a girl I was crazy about, and it put me on a path of treating women like crap for years. there's that rejection. This is how people, that's 100% natural. I'm not an expert on this, but I mean, I know enough, and I think everyone will agree with that. I did it because they allowed it. I met my wife, his now wife, and she wouldn't allow it. Funny how it works. It set me back on my heels and made me reevaluate how I'd been acting. Married 28 years last March.
I got a story for that. So me and Shannon have been dating for a while. Now, mind you, when I met my wife, I was working in a strip club.
Were you stripping or?
Sorry, I was not.
Was it a ladies' club or a gentleman's club?
Gentleman's club. I was a bouncer,
stripping.
running things in there, stuff like that.
Right.
And I remember, and I liked her so much. So we met that night at the party, and she wanted me to go to a birthday party with her friends. I remember thinking, like, I really, really like this girl. So
this was recent after meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, man, we got to have like a proper date, one-on-one, where we just sit and talk. And I remember sitting there at this Planks in Grove City, and I was like, I got to tell her, bro, like, what I do. Because I drove dump truck.
Were you ashamed of that? Like, were you
no,
like,
I wasn't ashamed of it.
Not sure how it's going to go over.
Right.
Yeah.
A dude working in a strip club, I mean, dating somebody, you don't know how they're going to react. And because I would work my dump trucks through the summer, and then I would go there in the winter and work. And this was during the winter time. Like, this was like February when we met. And I was like, yo, this is what's up. This is what I'm doing. This is what I do, but this is what I do in the winter. And she was like, okay. Like, she was, like, on board. Like,
what did she do at the time?
She was she served at Roosters on the west side.
Yeah.
So she was cool, and I just sat back like, okay, step one. And she was just always cool about everything. So we're dating from this point. I remember, like, my issues were coming up in my brain. Like, I was freaking out. I was getting ready
There's
to...
still that arm's length, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially
not,
if you
not
like...
as bad as everybody else. She was like, if this was normal, she was here.
Yeah.
Like, right here.
She's getting into your bubble, though, man.
And I'm the one going off to work at the strip club, and I'm freaking out on her, like, so what are you going to do when I leave here, and blah, blah, blah. And she was... I remember she...
Great move. Great move.
She turned around and looked at me. She's like, I'm not these other girls. I love you. And
that's what Doug said.
We will work through this. And
like
my thought process changed from that night in a relationship. I said, okay, she's in it. She's in it for me. Even though I'm crazy with some of this stuff, she saw through it.
What's the age comparison here between you and
2 years.
Older or younger?
I'm older by 2.
You're older. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're 30, 31. She's in her late 20s.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, Shannon, this you met the girl, you've been with her for a little bit, you have that conversation that you were just talking about. Where are you in this arm's length? You already said that you're about here, right? And you've already let her in a little bit more. She's broken that brick wall down a little bit, and then she tells you that statement when you're about to leave to go to work, and you get up in her grill a little bit, metaphorically speaking, and she just lays that on you that, hey, listen, I love you. What did that do? I mean, what did that do to your
my
arm
anxiety was through the roof because I didn't know if I walk out that door, like, okay, was she going to call somebody up, go out and do her thing? And she said that to me, and my anxiety went from 10 to 0, like, instantly. And I knew at that point, when she walked in that door the very first night, I knew I was going to marry her. I knew.
Really?
It. I knew. I've never said that about anything in my life. I knew 100%.
On the blind date?
Yes.
At the party?
Absolutely. And she'll tell you, like, you can ask her, like, I knew. And she told me later on.
She knows what you told her, but I'm saying, like, you're saying right now, like, it was like.
Yeah, it was instant.
Love at first sight.
Absolutely.
That bullshit thing that people say doesn't happen, love at first sight.
Right.
Yeah, that happened.
Absolutely. Like, she'll tell you, like.
That's amazing.
She walked in the door, and it's so cliche what I'm about to say. But
walk us through this rom-com, please. I want to hear what this.
She
goes.
walked in, and it was. I swear to you, it was like time has stood still.
I'm picturing like cranberries in the background.
No
like
music.
singing a song.
No music.
The
No
cranberries. What am I thinking of? Linger. Yeah. Like in Click. Yeah. No.
There was
absolutely.
no music. There's no
What year
wind
was this?
machines. There was no.
30
14 years ago. So what? 2006, 7, somewhere in there.
Like Backstreet Boys or.
Yeah.
No, I love this. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I love. No,
I
I
gotta
love
give you a
it.
little bit of shit. You know what I mean?
No,
This is a heavy
bring it on.
podcast. It's
Yeah.
heavy beyond the BS. But
Right.
there's
no
definitely
BS.
You're at a party. There's something going on. Like
Yeah.
there's a background track there that you.
And she
gotta
said she felt the
think
same
about.
thing when she walked in.
Yeah.
Like there was something different about when we met. And thank God she saw through my, I don't call it madness, but my brokenness. She was able to see through the brokenness
Yeah.
and see who I really was. And she nurtured that out of me over the next few years. So
That's good.
You brought you walked through the door, and I think it's a metaphor, right? But you like when people talk about baggage, right? And it's something I'm thinking about right now. It's like when you walk through a door and you meet someone like that in that situation. I'm literally thinking like if you were like to draw a picture of this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know her story. And I don't want to share her story really necessarily tonight. It's more focused on you, but she's got some baggage. But I feel like it's the opposite of a stereotype when you're packing for a trip. The guy like packs like a small bag, and it's like, yeah, I'm ready for the week-long vacation, right. And then the woman is me too. And you're like, is that all you're bringing? It's like, oh no, the rest of the bag's in the bedroom. You're like, okay, let me go grab them. You're like, I got to take 4 trips. That's the opposite here. Is that she walked in with like a purse and like maybe like a carry-on,
right?
And you had, we were talking about earlier, like the Louis Vuitton luggage.
I had the truck packed in the bag, baby.
Yeah, you're like, no, I got a straight truck out back,
right? And
she helped you unload it,
absolutely,
and empty one bag after another,
absolutely.
And I'm sorry if that's too poetic or whatever, but I think that's the metaphor there is that everyone walks into that type of situation, and all these bags that you had packed. You have not opened. You have not. You haven't even looked in a while. You just know. I know what's in that suitcase.
They're in the back of the closet.
You know what I mean? Yeah, they're in the back of the closet. It's like when you're like hoarding things.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I know it's there, but I don't go in that room.
Right.
I'm not going to do it. And she walks in, and you're like, I'm opening the door. I'm going. Don't go in there. You don't want to go in there. It's embarrassing. I don't want you to see what I'm holding back there. And then she's like, okay, cool. What's that over there? And then she's like barges in. She's like, all right, well, I'm going to start decluttering this shit. I love this.
We got to clean it up, baby.
I absolutely love this.
Yeah.
She's a saint.
So
Yes.
going back to this 30-foot, 1,000-foot view that we were talking about. I mean, was she the one that helped you get there? When did you get there? How did you get there?
She was the catalyst to make me start thinking maybe I can be loved. She was
powerful, man.
She was definitely the catalyst, and there was a lot after that I had to work out.
Sure.
But she never left my side through the working that stuff out. She was always there to pick me up and keep pushing me. I never had anybody push me towards something or help me get better internally, right?
Yeah.
She was there to, I've got your back. That's all I've ever wanted from anybody in my life. That I know somebody had my back.
Most people don't want, like they want to, but the baggage becomes, and I'm not trying to belittle everything we talked about, but like the baggage that you walk through in life, it's very hard to unload.
It's
because
embarrassing.
You talk about that, like
it's
that
embarrassing.
baggage, I'm going to put that right up on your shoulder, right? Your story here, you talked about having like the chip on your shoulder, the cinder block. That's what I was just like kind of trying to make a little bit lighter, but it's like that's the straight truck out back, that's what I'm taking on vacation. That's it. Like you don't want to let go of it.
Right.
That's the hoarder. That's what I'm saying. It's just like you want that help, but when it comes,
but in all that craziness and this identity I'd built myself on, I was like, okay, I got to give this up. Like that's not who I really am.
How did you do that?
I'm not
though?
the mean guy. I'm not the.
But that was your identity.
It was, and it was a fake identity.
From 12 to 30, so the majority of your life at that point, your identity had been what we've been talking about.
Right.
So you talk about a catalyst.
Yeah. It was just something sweet about her soul that it was nothing like I'd ever encountered. And she was so understanding of who I was and where I've come from. And I won't tell her story or anything, but that's for her to talk about. But
we'll have her on the podcast, don't worry.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can sit in the audience.
And it was just like she could see through it all when nobody else could.
And she wanted to.
And she wanted to, yeah.
That's the kicker, right? You know what I mean? It's like people can see through your shit.
Yeah.
Your friends can see through your shit all the time. Yes. Those people you were holding back, arm's length and all that stuff. Everyone knows that you're, like, yeah, I've been talking to you about the same thing for a year now. You don't want this. You have this baggage, all that stuff. And when someone, like, it can be a close friend or someone that can see through your shit. But it is that person. There's a breakthrough point. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that has to do with you, Shannon. The fact you let her do that. That's the key that I don't think enough people talk about is that you put a lot of the responsibility on your change. In my opinion, you put a lot of responsibility on your now wife, Shannon. Mm. But I think you said it more accurately when you said that she was the catalyst.
Yes.
So to Josh's point earlier, like just now, like what changed in you though? Because that's these, people that are watching, they're listening. Like Doug says, it wasn't his identity; it was a shield.
Yeah.
Kylie, she made a comment which I absolutely love. Man, dating is so hard. From the stories you guys are sharing, you don't always get exactly what you see. Communication is such a big deal. It's nice to hear these stories, but it wasn't just about the outside factors. Mm. It's what changed in you though. What changed from the 12-year-old Shannon to that point?
I think she allowed me to start diving into myself and what really made me tick, and it allowed me to explore things without retribution, without being condemned if I made a mistake or like trying to figure myself out. And from when we met, I didn't change instantly. It was a process, right? It was a process.
But it was a start button.
It was definitely a start button. And so we were together. We got married in 2010. Things are good, but there was always... We weren't fighting. We weren't having blowouts, but it came to a point where we kind of were just living, and neither one of us were...
What was the time frame there?
2012. So
when
we got
did you guys
married.
Meet?
So we got married 2010. We met, I think, 05, 6, somewhere in there.
7 years.
Yeah.
You ever heard about that?
What's that?
You heard about that, Josh?
I don't know what you're referring to.
The 7-year itch?
Could be, yeah.
There's a theory there that, like the 7-year mark is huge.
So, like, we were at a point where we knew something had to change. Like, we didn't hate each other. There wasn't any bad blood. We were just living, and we weren't going anywhere. We were just kind of... It almost to that point. Yeah. It was kind of to that point. And this time I was kind of doing some personal training it was Urban Active at the time. Mm. There was a guy working the front desk. I'll never forget. I walked in. His name's Greg Ford. He's the pastor at one church now. He's a super awesome dude. I remember I walked in at like 5:30 in the morning. He's a super energetic guy. He walks in. He's like, "Yo, what's up?" I'm like, "Dude, it's too early for this crap."
I've not had my coffee.
Right.
Calm down.
So we developed a really good friendship, and I remember he was like, "Yo, I just moved to town. I'm getting ready to plant a church. I've never gone to church in my life."
He hadn't, or you hadn't?
I never went to church.
Okay.
He was a church, like, that's how he grew up. And
yeah,
he's a young guy. He was in his late 20s at that time, I believe, mid to late 20s. And I just remember I was like, "Bro, I don't do church. It's cool, but I appreciate everything you're
Let me help you lift."
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you in shape.
No, he was working the front desk.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I thought you were a personal trainer.
No, he was working the front desk, and we became really good friends. And I always appreciated his approach. Like, he never like beat me over the head with it. We'd just talk about it here and there, and I was like, "Yeah, it's for other people. I'm too broken. I don't belong there. Whatever." So fast forward to, that was like 2009, maybe into 10. 2012. So this week leading up to Easter, I was feeling crazy. I think my wife was feeling it. Things were just, we were living together, but we weren't like talking and sharing. We were just kind of like, "How was your day? Peace."
And you were not married?
No, we were married at this point. And we were on the couch watching TV, and she just looked over. She's like, "I think we should go to church. We should go see Greg." And I just looked over and said, "Okay." Like, and I think I was feeling it too. Like, that tug was in my heart. Like, something's got to change. So fast forward to Saturday, the day before Easter church service. We go to a friend's birthday party at Adobe Gillis.
Very, very sacred place.
Now, mind you, I've done every
Full sarcasm for those of you who are not in Columbus.
So I have
It's like Cancun in a mall.
Absolutely, margaritas, baby, come on.
I want the biggest fishbowl margarita you can give me.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So I kind of was like, all right, cool. We went to this birthday party. It was there. Everybody's having a good time, and this person was kind of a friend of mine, and they showed up, and we're all having a good time. And this dude was so drunk, he was mad at me because I didn't go to his engagement where he was proposing to his now wife. And we're standing there, and all of a sudden he just starts talking this crazy crap to me, like calling me everything under the book, like. And I'm looking
random,
just out of nowhere. I think he was blacked out drunk, just crazy. Literally, me and my wife and him and his girl were literally just talking about going on vacation together. To, "You're a piece of shit. You're a this. You're that." I remember looking. I'm like, "What is going on?" I looked at my wife like, "What's going on?" And I've kind of like gotten away from the fighting and all that. I just don't want to do that stuff. And I looked at his girl and I was like, "Is he okay?" She's like, "He's his own man. He can do what he wants." So I was like, "Oh, shit, okay." And I just looked at him and I said, "Bro, you're going down a one-way street that you can't turn around on."
Yeah. And
he said another thing. I snatched him up. All hell broke loose. Now, this is the day before I'm going to church.
Well,
So, like,
you got to repent about something.
So all that went down. I go to church the next day. It's the first time I've ever gone to church. I remember we pulled in the parking lot, and I'm staring at the sign that says, "Welcome to One Church." And I look at my wife like, "I can't do this. This is not me. I can't do this." And I'm standing there, and this couple comes walking out the front door, Karen and Brian. I love them to death. He's my soulmate. He comes out, and I don't...
What was his name? I'm sorry if he's listening.
It's Brian and Karen Stone.
Right. I hope they listen at some point.
And they walk up, and my wife will tell you I'm not like a big hugger because it's just the way I was raised. Nobody hugged. He comes up, he's like, "Hey, man," and it grabs my hand and hugs me. I said, "Oh, shit."
You say that louder in your head.
In my head.
All right, I'm just curious how you walked into this church.
Because
if that was your first go.
I stood there and I kind of like stiffened up, and I looked at her, and she was like, she started laughing.
Yeah.
And they brought us in, and then Greg was standing in when we walked in. He was super pumped to see us. And I'll never forget that first sermon. I sat there, and he was basically preaching my life to me. He didn't know what happened the night before.
Right.
He didn't know anything about me. And I looked over at my wife. I was like, "What did you tell him?" She's like, "I didn't tell him anything." I said, "All right, this is where I need to be."
Well, I think that goes back to, Bobby Hirschman that commented on this earlier, is that, like, this story is not unique. I mean, it's powerful. You know what I mean? That's the true, in my opinion, I'm of the opinion that that's the true sadness behind this. This is this type of...
I'm not alone.
Not
in
the
this,
situation that you were in, early on, but that fear of rejection or the feeling of rejection is so common. and even that part, like with you, in a sense, being given up for adoption at an early age, but to your own family, it's such a powerful thing that you fast forward all these years through this whole story, and you get to that point, and like you're like, how does this person know my story? It's like you're not alone.
No, absolutely not.
And I think you've said that to me before, and looking at your video on YouTube,
yeah, I said it in the video, yeah.
And that resonates with me is that it's like you're not alone, and everyone that's on this stream right now on the Facebook Live, and I hope you guys can actually tune in on this podcast if you guys are listening to the audio. If you're free on Wednesday nights, be a part of this for so many reasons.
Yeah.
It's not just the cigars and whiskey, and I think that's what sets us apart. Is it's the beyond the BS. It's the part two. It's this part is that it's so relevant to so many people.
It really sparked the complete change in how I viewed everything. So I went to church for a year, then that same guy, Brian, he had this little connect group called Hurts, Habits, and Hangups.
Hurts?
Habits and Hangups.
Okay.
It's a book. And I remember walking in there and like, these people don't know shit. Like, I've been through it, right? I sit down.
You're 17 years old again.
Yeah. I came in.
I know so much more than these assholes.
Yeah, I came in there like the hard ass and like, whatever, man.
They don't know me.
Right. And I sat down there and people started sharing their stories, and I literally was like, shit, I got nothing on these people.
They do know me.
Right.
And more.
And that was the first time I was like, shit, I'm not alone in this, like, this
Right.
crazy thoughts that people have and situations and childhoods. And that was the first time it really was, like, in my face, and I had to really confront it.
What year was this? How many years ago was it?
2013.
All right.
Late. I think it was late 13, like in December maybe.
So you're late 30s.
Yeah.
All right. Nate, what do you got?
So what went through your head when you realized that not only are you not alone with what you've gone through, but there are some people that may have gone through worse? Like, sitting in that group, what went through your head that made you realize that you weren't by yourself? You weren't unique in what you had gone through.
I think you just said it, unique. I wasn't unique in a situation of brokenness. Like, I'm sitting across from some people that some of the crap they shared was, my jaw was on the ground, and I was like, honestly, I probably didn't have it that bad. Like, it was bad. No, don't get me wrong. It was bad for me.
You're not as unique as you thought you were.
Correct.
Is I think that the more more
gonna
accurate
interject.
statement.
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead,
interject
please.
because it's not you, it's your situation.
Right.
Isn't as unique, right?
Right. There you go.
Your
That's a
situation
better way of
that-
saying
that-
it. Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're going through isn't unique. You find these people that have since, I imagine, become your friends and confidants and such, and you realize that their situations that they went through can somehow meld with yours, and you find this common place, right? And it makes you whole again, I guess.
Yeah, that's good because it started filling holes that I always carried. Like, okay.
First, I'm sorry.
Okay.
As hosting this, Josh says, makes you feel whole again. Immediately, he agrees with you. Shannon says, it fills holes.
Yeah.
Go on. No, I really like that.
Yeah, I mean,
is
that's
absolutely
accurate. That's
the
so
key
accurate.
of that. When you make you feel whole again, it's because you are filling holes.
Yeah, think of those 1,000 puzzle pieces you get and you put those pictures together.
Yeah, I don't do those. It makes me
No,
feel
me
stupid.
either. I couldn't. But it was like,
I got a corner piece.
so it was starting to
And I'm done. I got
starting to
4.
put these little pieces back in. Like, okay, I'm not stupid. I'm not a reject. I'm not, like, all these things are really starting to be fixed. And that was the real turning point in really changing my perspective on life and how I viewed people.
So what I like about that is when I look at this whole conversation, and you go full story with you, Shannon. And I kind of feel bad to the point we haven't gotten to that story where we get to the young man that you're like they're shadowing you or you're mentoring.
I mean, we can jump into that.
Well, but I want to say this is that you go full circle. You've already had this where you met Shannon. You've already gone through this. You've had the spiritual side of it, which we've had, people commenting on that, and I absolutely love that. Whether you believe in it or not, that's the big thing is that you believe in people. I'm gonna take it back a notch just to talk to the masses. Is that you believe in a higher power? That's amazing. I agree completely with that. But what I like about it is that when you get to this point, when you go to this group, you walked in again with that. And this is full circle, right?
Yeah.
You walk in, block on your shoulder. You probably had, like the imaginary lat syndrome. You have good lats, but I'm saying like an inflated
I came
lat
in
syndrome.
full of piss and vinegar.
So you walk in, you turn sideways to walk through the door because you're too wide and too big of a man to be in this situation. And then you open your ears, and then all of this fear of rejection goes away. Yeah. Because at that point, now you're listening.
Yeah.
Now you're learning.
Correct.
You're not just being like, oh, I got the. And it's sad because at that point in your life, you're in your late 30s. You know what I mean? You're going into these situations. You're like, these people are going to talk about what they have. Like they don't know anything. Like let me drop a, mic drop on you guys. Let me tell my story, and then you guys will just be in awe and be like, holy shit, this guy had it rough. But you weren't the first to talk.
No, that's what I was getting ready to say.
Yeah.
So I was probably, I think, second to last to talk. And by the time it got to me, I was like, do I want to share?
Pass.
Like, oh, this is what happened.
Back to your point.
All right, go ahead.
You need $10. Here's $12. That's back to your story from being in high school. Be like, here's $12. Like, why are you giving me $12? I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm doing right now, but I think this is what I do.
Yeah.
You learned from it.
And what that taught me
And I like what you said, Josh, though.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I want to just kind of frame around where you're at this point. So these people have shared, and you're listening, you're hearing where they're at. Where are you at in your life? Where you're at your point, you've opened up a little bit. You've heard that your situation isn't unique. Were you still holding animosity towards?
You talking about then or now?
No. This is at that point when he's sitting in the middle of this group, at this Connect group. Do you still have animosity towards your biological parents at this point? Do you still have animosity built up?
Yes, I did at that point.
To your who you call mom and dad, who you were, were your grandparents at that time? Tell us what that battle was like.
And that's 5 years ago only.
Yeah. So it was. I still carried that stuff with me, but I was getting tools how to understand it. But I was still like,
When you say you're beyond it?
I stopped being pissed to just like whatever. Like I didn't know how to handle all these new emotions coming in. So I still love them. Like at that point I loved them, and I knew them, and I knew some of the story. So I'll jump ahead just a little bit.
Go ahead.
From 2013 to 16, I'm in church, I'm doing things, I'm growing. I mean, these people are helping me out tremendously. They're pouring into me in ways that I didn't even know was possible. And we're getting ready to move from the one location we were at to a new church. Like, we're taking over another area, another church. And
through growth.
Through growth, yes. And I called my parents. They live in Texas now. I called them. They're separated now, but I called.
I'm sorry. I think it's imperative, like biological or
biological.
Okay.
So they live in Texas, San Antonio, and I called them separately. I said, "Hey, I need you guys in the same room together. I need to talk to you." Right? Because we always talked about forgiveness, and I could not forgive anything about with that situation. So through all this growth over the next 3 years, I came to this point. Like, we always talk about, say you got a 5-legged table. We'll just use a table as an example. It's 5 legs. If one leg's off, the whole table's off. It's out of balance, right?
I think.
Well, just imagine just something.
4-legged, you take one off, is 3. 5 super stable.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking in the terms that we discussed, the 5 different. So we'll just go to a 4-legged table.
Take one leg off,
and it's
gonna
out of balance. It's going to fall. It won't support
yeah.
anything, right? So I've healed all these other areas except for this one area. And I was like, if I'm going to really grow and become who I want to be and where I'm going, I have to heal this. So I called them up. I said, hey, I need you guys both together in the same room on speakerphone. And each one of them like, are you dying? Like, what's wrong? Are you sick? I'm like, no. Just get together and call me when you're in the same room.
Right.
So this was the weekend, full circle. This is the weekend before Easter 2016. So we were doing our first service in the new church on Easter. I called them and I said, hey, I get what happened. I understand. I don't understand it all, but I forgive you, and I want you to forgive me if I've caused you any hurt, any heartache. Bro, when I did that, tears, I couldn't stop crying.
Incredible.
That's super powerful.
The weight of the world came off my... you can ask my wife. That day I made that phone call...
Was she there with you?
No, she was still in the building, but when I walked in, she's like, you were a completely different person from that day forward.
What was their response?
A lot of tears, a lot of this, that, and there was a lot of understanding, and we've talked about a lot of stuff after that, and I've got more details of what really happened, and I'll keep that personal, but...
Yeah, absolutely. I respect that.
Man, it changed my life. To forgive and actually really forgive in your heart, not in your mind, that's, I think, where people mess up. They'll forgive somebody, but it's a brain forgiveness.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're cool, bro. It's all good. But when you forgive from your heart, that's a whole nother level. Something I never felt before, and it changed me from that day.
So Kylie's listening, and she says, when dealing with my own resentments, sometimes, quote, my part, end quote, in the situation where I can do something different is that I'm continuing to hold on to it. I don't let go of the resentments with people like parents overnight. I'm still holding on to some resentments. I just ain't that spiritual yet. I might not ever be. Just trying not to let it take up all of my headspace. Again, that
always
brings me back
will.
to my point is that, it's like we're not necessarily, and I've shared my personal viewpoint on religion and all that stuff on previous podcasts, but I think it's something there is that it's, whether it's what you were going through, Shannon and Josh, I know you're of similar mindset and your heart's in the same place. It's people.
Yes.
And I'm not going to take away what you were as far as what drove you to that and the spiritual side of it based on Kylie's remark, but it's the people. Whatever the reason, whatever the greater cause is, and you guys can comment if you want, but I'm saying, like, if you're not in that religious realm, if you're not practicing anything like that, it's still about the people.
I'll say this, that forgiveness is not a spiritual thing. It's
Bingo.
not a religious thing. It's not a faith thing.
I'm glad you said that.
It's a person thing. And forgiveness is in your heart.
It's a bigger picture thing.
It's a bigger picture of anything.
So I'll interject and say
Please.
here that there, I'm so glad you shared that, Shannon, and there's a certain vulnerability, right, that it takes.
You nailed it.
And
Wait, what takes?
Forgiveness. That forgiveness, might take, and you really have to be, as a man, right,
or woman.
Or a woman, you have to be a man, you have to be a woman, and accept that vulnerability, and you have that hurt, because that unforgiveness is causing hurt that you can't get over. And my man Shannon alluded to that and said, hey, this isn't about spirituality. This isn't about faith, right? It's about that unforgiveness. It's about that hurt that is deep down within. And until you get vulnerable, until you're willing to express that animosity that you hold for whatever reason, and each person's situation is unique, as we talked about before.
Absolutely.
It's getting vulnerable and talking about that forgiveness, and if not, I personally believe, I mean, you're always going to be hurt. Somebody will have always offended you, and so you can choose to go through life living offended, hurt because of what somebody did to you or how somebody betrayed you.
That is super relevant right
right?
now.
Yeah.
Or how somebody abandoned you, right? But until you're willing to become vulnerable and accept that vulnerability, and then that reflects in you going to that person and saying, hey, I don't even know how to talk about this. I don't know how to share about this, but this is how I feel. And nobody can tell you how you feel, right?
I can try.
I mean,
they're gonna.
But
people like to try.
They're your feelings.
I know they're gonna try.
So they can try and tell you, but you're the one who holds those feelings. So nobody can tell you how you feel, and you share how you feel and how it's hurt you. And you want to know what? It's not about that other person forgiving you at that point. Am I right, Shannon?
Right, no.
It's about you getting it off your chest and you saying, hey, I want to let you know, no matter what's in your heart, no matter what you hold, I'm forgiving you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you'll find that breaks down that vulnerability, and you'll see what they express.
And
Well,
now,
I want to say forgiveness. Like again, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but I know there are people that are religious listening. I know there are people that are not religious listening. But what I will say is that forgiveness is like, to your point, Shannon, it's people to people.
100%.
So to Josh's point, when you forgive someone, or when you actually get to that point, when you forgive that, it is not necessarily about making peace.
Not with that person.
Exactly.
I'm making peace with myself.
Yeah. Well, you're sharing that peace. Mm-hmm. And it's something that Nate he put up on his new whiteboard is sharing your growth, which is the topic. Yeah. And I think that's what brought me into this, like this late in the game right now. That finally clicked for me when we discussed this topic, sharing your growth. And my thought was, and I'm sorry, I don't think we're gonna have time to get into
That's fine.
What your situation is. I want people to do that, and I'll have you back on if you're welcome.
Absolutely,
if you want, or if you're interested. But sharing your growth. So forgiveness is sharing your growth. That's it. Take it or leave it on the other eye. But you're saying, Josh, is that it's a lot of times people will do that. They'll try to talk to someone and be like, "No, I forgive you," and they're like, "Okay," and you're like, do you not forgive me? Right. You know what I mean? You're like that. You go into it hoping to like make peace.
I think,
but if you truly go in there sharing your growth, though, Shannon, like you did, you had no idea what your biological parents were.
And I
say
wasn't concerned about their answer
because you were sharing your growth.
Absolutely.
Oh.
You went through all of this. I forgive you, and I love you, and I don't understand it 100%. But I'm getting to that 60-40, 70-30 aspect of it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I may never be at 100%. You know what I mean? You might be on your deathbed at one point. And you might be like literally saying like, I get it now. Or you might go through something that you get it then. And hopefully you share that growth. You make that reach again and be like, this isn't the last conversation based on what we talk about. But when you share that growth, when you forgive them, and you do that, doesn't matter what they say on the other end. That's not what it's about. You made your pitch.
Yeah, I never went into that conversation looking for a rebuttal.
Exactly.
That wasn't
you were
even
sharing with them.
Absolutely. There wasn't like, okay, I'm going to say this, so what are you going to say? What's going to relieve me of... Yeah, there was tears, and I'm not going to share what they said, but there was tears, and there was like... It was a beautiful moment.
That's amazing.
So,
Nate?
I don't want to get too much into the scriptural side of things, but what you said reminded me of a scripture where it says... As much as is dependent upon you, if possible, live peaceably with all men. Two things about that.
Very good.
One, it's not always about you. Two, it's not always possible. But once you do as much as you can do, like in your situation,
right.
Once you called your parents up and said, I forgive you, basically you're washing your hands of it. Like, the weight's off my shoulders. I've done as much as I can do.
That cinder block fell off that day.
The next step is yours.
Yeah,
I've done as much as I can do. Where we go from here?
As simply as I can put it is like the yoke came off that day.
But you still have to be prepared for the response. Expectations aside, you have to be prepared. You can't go into a situation like that, a conversation like that with another party. Because
I'm sorry, I don't want to interject, but your happiness is not based on their response.
I agree completely
in that moment.
I agree completely, and I what I'm saying is you go full blow into that conversation, that situation, whatever it is. Like yours, Shannon, is very impactful, and it's something that is, I will say, is unique. Even though we talked about things that, it's not always unique, but I mean, that one is unique. But anytime you go into a conversation like that, you don't necessarily have to impact your life based on what they say or how the reaction is. But it's, again, not a mic drop. It's not like, in my opinion, it's, you still have to, you have this, even if you like completely clear your mind of like, no matter what they say, this is what I want to say. Then the other party, whatever the situation is, they say what they have to say. Don't dilute that in your mind. Don't confuse yourself. You're still gonna have you're gonna have an impact.
All I'm gonna say is about that is when I went in that conversation in that phone call, how do I say this? I was going to say what I was going to say, and if they hung up the phone, I would have been perfectly fine with it. Like, I said my piece from my heart, and if they'd have just hung up the phone, I would have been fine. Because I lifted the yoke off of my shoulders. And whatever happens on that end, that's with them now. And how they respond.
You're preparing for the worst.
I don't even think I prepared for anything. I just was like, this is where I'm at. These are all those emotions I felt all my life came to that point right there in that phone call.
Maybe I'm looking at it from a positive standpoint.
And I dumped it, and that's...
Your piece wasn't predicated on their response.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
And I agree with that. What people don't always expect, though, when you go into that situation is the positive side of it, in my opinion.
Okay, I get
that their response is,
yeah,
I love you so much, I want to be a part of your life. Because when you go into it, and you're like, I'm going to say my piece, it's kind of like a breakup for me. It's,
okay,
you go into it, you're like, I'm going to load my, like I got peace, I got well-being right now. I'm going to go into it, and I'm going to be like, this is where I'm at, and all that stuff. And you're expecting them to maybe hang up. You're maybe expecting them to be like, well, I appreciate you saying that, and I'm going to reflect on that. They're like, I'm so glad you said that. We've been struggling with this for a long time. I can't wait to be a part of your life. You may not be ready for that. You know what I mean? Like, you went into it. Like, everyone goes into a situation like, I'm prepared for everything, except for sometimes, again, full circle, and we're going to go into closing remarks, full circle, there's no longer rejection there. And they're like, we're coming up. We're driving there tomorrow morning. You're like, oh shit. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Let me clean the house.
Honey, mom and dad are coming. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I'm saying, though, is like
Yeah.
someone bounces back. Like, that's maybe I alluded it wrong, but I'm saying, like, sometimes people respond to that and be like,
Yeah.
I have been waiting for you to say that for so long. I'm so glad you said it because I didn't have the balls to say it.
Right.
And now I want to be a part of your life.
They've always been a part, not in a major way. Like, we talk, and I'd go down there every once in a while and hang out. It wasn't like we were like completely separated, never talked, but that big elephant in the room got slayed that day.
That's perfect.
So, yeah.
Josh, what do you have? I mean, like, as far as closing remarks, I mean, we need to round this out. This was I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank everyone listening on Facebook Live. You know, I mean, we've had a constant stream of comments and questions and people listening. I really appreciate that. The support is overwhelming. But, Josh, you know, going in the closing remarks of Beyond the BS, part 2 of episode 102, sharing your growth. And it took us a while to get here. I mean, Shannon, your story is impactful. It's powerful. It is relatable. And I think that's the most impactful part of it, is that whether or not you went through this, is that you can listen to a story like yours, and it can be such a small, it can be a 10% level of what you went through. It's that rejection, it's the abandonment, it's everything that you went through, but it's something that you might have had happen to you, that you think that you wake up in the morning, you're like, well, my life's over. I don't know what to do with myself anymore. But I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. But Josh, I'm going to start you with the closing, remarks. Is that, I mean, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, that's
It's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure. I feel like I have a
smart
cinder
man.
block on my shoulders. No, I mean, I'm just so appreciative, Shannon, for you sharing your story. I mean, the growth that you've experienced is unbelievable. I hope that I hear in your closing remarks a bit of advice.
Yes.
For listeners who might be going through that. But I mean, it's just an incredible story of grace and forgiveness that I think is out there, that people just might be looking in the wrong places, for, and might be going about it the wrong way, and living this life of animosity and fear and anxiety, and that comes along with so much of what our population is dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And I think that your story is an incredible it leads way into a lot of conversation and communication. And so I appreciate you sharing with that. I've grown, just in listening to this.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I want to pass it along to you and hopefully hear some advice.
Man, if I could just impart anything to anybody, like when I look back at the majority of my life, I lived it with a closed heart, a shut-off heart, and it affected a lot of relationships and how I dealt with people. And through this growing and sharing my growth, what I did, instead of leading with a closed heart when I come into a relationship or a person, even when I meet you for the first time, I start leading with my heart, and it's changed every relationship I've come to since. Like, I don't lead with like, okay, what's this guy going to think? Like, I generally lead with my heart first. Like, when I extend my hand, that's my heart coming out, and I'm going to open up to you 100%, and that's changed everything in my life. From a closed heart to an open heart. I'm going to love you, man, so, we're good. And I think that if I could pass on to anybody, if you can actually go into any new relationship, a friend, a partner, whatever it's going to be, if you can lead with your heart in the beginning, the rest will follow. So.
No, I think it's a powerful advice. I mean, I think that's the lesson there. But the thing is, and Sean and the audience wants to say something. Here's what I'll say about that, Shannon, is if that's all you say, that's the bumper sticker.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
When I shake your hand, it's from my heart.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the T-shirt. That's everything. That's the tagline. But before, Sean, I want you to share what you want to share, but I need to know, and I know I'm not alone. I need to know where that tagline and where that bumper sticker comes from, and that's what I loved about tonight.
Yeah.
And I'll share my closing remarks shortly. Sean, go ahead.
I'll be real quick. I've known Shannon for a couple of years now, and I consider him one of my really good friends. And being able to sit here and watch this all unfold has just been a blessing, just for me to be able to be able to witness it. But what he just said, seeing how he is when I go to one church and how he greets people, it's legit. He's not just saying that to say it. He has touched so many lives because he leads. He leads with his heart. I've seen it countless times, and it's just knowing, from the back, on the outside looking in, seeing how he is as a person and how he's touched so many people's lives. It's true. I've seen it countless times, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. So,
thanks, buddy. Love you.
That's amazing. So I think that actually leads me into my closing remarks. And before I do that, and I hope you guys don't tune out because I do have a brief moment to share something here, but I do want to thank our sponsors. I always do this before my closing remarks now, is that Josh Bentley from Untitled USA, I consider a good friend of mine, that he brought some amazing cigars. Part 1, Bourbon and BS podcast, episode 102, that Herman's batch was lights out. I will say, and I'm sorry, if this Por Laranaga is a predicate blend, I will write a strongly worded letter to make this happen again if you have the tobacco. I don't care if it's aged for 9, 4, 3, or I can smoke it off the rolling table. But let's do this again. He brought a unicorn here, cabinet selection. I'm going to talk to you, Paul, Alex, Maria, whoever I need to talk, Raphael when he's in town. I'm going to talk about this needs to happen again. We can put a BS logo on that. So I do want to thank our sponsors, Altadis USA, for the cigars tonight, for the continued support. This is a big part of what makes this podcast happen for the last year and a half, and I appreciate you, Josh, and being on here, not only for the sponsorship but for your words and your conversation. It's very, very appreciated. It absolutely is. Shannon, thank you very much for being a part of this.
Thank you for having me here,
your
man.
Story is I fight back tears again tonight. You and Sean, man, you can't come over anymore. Or one at a time, maybe. Also, thank Tinderbox at Easton again. Since we don't have the Herman's batch, the banker from H. Upmann, the H. Upmann Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez, 15% off. Get a hold of us if you want to take advantage of that deal, please. If you're local, come on in. If you're not local, contact us. We will absolutely send you a package with 15% off the retail of those cigars, and also be a cigar company. You guys out there on the Patreon page and everyone else supporting the podcast by listening, sharing, reviewing, liking, I appreciate all of you guys. Also Nate Hale, who has been here to help support the podcast, beyond the podcast, do all that stuff. Dustin Bovey, Jake Sanders, who's in Indianapolis now, Kyle Smith, who's taking all the photography, all that stuff. You guys make all this stuff work, and I appreciate this. This has been a longer podcast than we've done in a while, and that's fine by me, because I hope you guys have listened to it and shared it and learned something from not only part 1, because we had a great conversation about the cigars and the whiskey.
Absolutely.
But this one, this part 2, the Beyond the BS, I've learned a lot. And the one thing I've learned from this conversation, the main impact that I've had, is whether you're going through shit or not, or you've come on the other side of it, and this is not a responsibility, but you impact people. So when you have those abandonment issues, when you have the rejection issues, I hope, and I went through this before in my life, in relationships and jobs and everything else, career-wise, everything. You're always unsure of yourself. And when you're going through that, Shannon, I'm listening to your story, and when I listen to what Sean just said about what your story, the impact on people now is the easy part.
I just get the love on people now.
But if someone would have told you with open ears in your teenage years, when you're running around with a bad crowd, when you're doing all this shit and you're doing all that stuff before you met your wife, Shannon, if the problem is the open ears.
Correct.
And that's the thing is listening to all these people on the feed, listening to your story, listening to my story. Josh, I know you had your ups and downs through your first 30-some years. We all do. You got to open your ears. You got to like when we talk about sharing your growth, it doesn't always have to be because you grew from hardships.
Right.
My challenge to anyone out there that's listening to this podcast at this point is this is the time to open your ears if you're going through the hardship. Stop.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Don't wait until you have your first 4 chapters. You know what I mean? Chapter 2, Chapter 3 of your book, no matter what age you are, when you're going through the hardship, this is when you open your ears. This is when you open your arms. This is a forced action that you're going through it. You know it already. We all know it when we're going through it. You knew it, Shannon.
Oh, 100%.
12 years old to 30 years old, every day you realized it and you struggled with it. If you are listening to this podcast or you know someone that's going through this, somehow someone's got to break down the wall earlier so that you listen to what people are saying. You listen to what we all, like, the anxiety, the rejection, the self-pity, all that stuff. You start bathing in it. Get out of the bath. Dry yourself off. And I know it's easier said than done because I couldn't do it, and I know you couldn't do it, Shannon. And Josh, whatever you went through, and we never dialed into that. And I know you have your own story like everyone does, and that was the key to this. Everyone goes through this to one level or the other, is get out of it, dry yourself off, and find your people. Right. Find your inspiration. It's not over. Stop. Like, really, really open your ears, open yourself so that you don't waste your time. Right. Shannon, you're 44?
44.
44 years old.
I'll be 45 this year.
So you're 44 years old. We did that with Ryan. I know. Everyone says, I'm about to turn this. Yeah, all right, so you're this age. But you're not, don't fast forward. Don't just brush over this part of your life. You know what I mean? Like, get out. Get yourself open to what people are saying, what you're saying to yourself. Shannon, the most impactful part of your story that I learned from is that even then, when you're going to those clubs, when you're in your 20s, you're doing all this stuff, you knew. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Not everyone has this future wife walking into their life that is the catalyst. And if I ever get in that point again, I hope that I'm my own catalyst.
Very good, yeah.
And I want everyone to be their own catalyst. When you do this, share your growth, is don't wait. Don't give it a decade. Don't give it chapters. Don't give it time. You know what I mean? Like, everyone heals and grows in different ways. But my hope is that if we do anything with our oncoming generations, is be your own catalyst.
Yeah.
Realize it. Like, listen to people.
And I will say that I'll say this to anybody that listens to this podcast: if you are going through something, reach out. I'll listen to you. I'll talk to you.
That's the big part.
Yeah, I will be your shoulder if you need it.
And that was the second part, is that if you open your ears, you realize that you're listening to yourself. When you went to that group, that's the thing.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear. Is that you are unique, but your story or you're not unique enough that no one's gone through something similar that you can learn from.
Absolutely.
So with that, again, thank you to everyone that's been a part of this. I want to raise my glass. Josh, yours is probably empty again. Jeez, that's two episodes in the same episode. Your glass is empty. But we'll cheers to that, guys. Next week, tune in Whiskey Wednesday. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bourbon and BS podcast, and also the Bourbon and BS community. Cheers. Enjoy your week.